Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, my beautiful squirrel friends. All right, we are here. I've been keeping an eye on the testimony because Lolly went quite long finishing direct examination today. And I was like, let's see if we can get to where we've got some more room here in the video where we can kind of finish his direct and then get into cross, just because, obvious reasons, Lolly gaggles along. So what we're going to do here is we're going to jump in. Let me pull up my witness. We're going to, not that one, this one. We're going to jump into the very end of direct here where he's got some exhibits and then go right into cross. And let's go ahead and get started.
If I could have photograph 2156. Where do you recognize what's now up on the screen has been marked as Exhibit 403?
I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's one of the photos comparing item 3-1 and piece 1.
That's interesting. Is this, I wonder, is that like just the light shining on it weirdly? I wonder. Hi, Candace. Good morning. Happy to see you, my friend.
This gentleman, if I could have photograph 2125.
Also, for anyone who didn't see, I did post a video a little bit earlier today with Becky Hill reading through all of her charges with the South Carolina Ethics Commission. And I didn't do it as a premiere or anything just because I couldn't be in two places at once. But that is there for anyone who's interested.
On the screen, which has now been marked as Exhibit 411.
I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the contents of item 3-1.
Interesting.
And that's prior to you. At what stage of this analysis?
Wow, look at these teeny little pieces here.
So that's when I initially looked at item 3-1.
I will say it's pretty impressive that they were able to find these size of pieces. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? Also crazy, though, that they wouldn't have blown away or just gotten, separated from the search area just due to the weather conditions, being that it was blizzarding and whatnot. Hi, Fender. So happy to see you. Woohoo. Is there a song about Wednesday nights? Should we make a song about Wednesday nights? Also, from the last day, yesterday? God, that was yesterday. From yesterday, for anyone who missed it, I did start coming up with a new idea for another song, thanks to Black Witter. Shout out to Black Witter. Because I was singing The Sound of Silence because there was so much silence and dead time with them admitting exhibits. And also we had done Simon & Garfunkel from like the stream prior. And she said The Sound of Lolly. And then I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I realized it could be like objection to The Sound of Lolly. I have it timestamped for anyone who's like wanting to check that out, but I'm going to have to probably have to do that as a song. Piano Man. Okay. I've heard the song Piano Man, but I don't know it well enough to like be able to know where that lyric specifically is. Is that the verse or the chorus? But I have another idea too for another song. We'll see what we come up with today. In addition to The Sound of Lolly. He's probably going to be done. Usually when they say, can I have a moment? I mean, oftentimes it's like she's been on direct.
If I could have photograph 2150.
We are almost, Fender, we are almost at the very end. Like, we should be across. I just wanted to see these pictures.
I do.
And what are we looking at in 431?
So on the left is item 3-1, piece A. And then on the right
Because I've been
is piece
listening,
1.
but I haven't been watching.
And it's coming if I could have 2 1.
So some of these pictures I didn't see yet.
And basically, do you recognize what's up on the screen, which has now been marked as Exhibit 4?
God, you can barely fucking hear Rob.
I do.
What are we looking at in 432?
That is piece 1 on top of item 3-1 in mechanical fit.
Is that the mechanical fit?
It's the puzzle lady.
Yes.
I'm sure you're right about that, Candace. Yep, definitely. You might be done now because I went right to that very end here.
Mr. Vallier, in reference to
Fucking in reference.
those items that you testified to earlier in item 3-1, the taillight housing, what, if any, conclusions regarding
Yeah, what do you want to hear?
those items as far as a physical match?
Love her hair.
Conclusions that you come to?
That item 3-1 and the pieces that make up piece 1 were at one time together as a larger unit.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
All right, excellent. Cross exam time. Why did they put bleach in your hair? The MSP is Massachusetts.
Good morning.
You have testified that when evidence comes into the crime lab, it's given crime lab evidence or item numbers, correct?
It's given a case number, and then each piece of evidence gets its own individual item number.
Okay, and if you can just keep your voice up because we want to make sure that the last jurors here can hear you. Consistent with that policy, the evidence that your lab received in this case was also given those item numbers, correct? 18.18. Would you agree with me, and feel free to check your records, but would you agree with me that that was the item number given to, quote, debris from orange t-shirt and gray long sleeve shirt, end quote?
Okay. Okay.
And again, it's 718.18.
Debris from orange t-shirt 7-17 and gray long sleeve shirt 7-18-JO.
Terrific. Item 7-18.18 did not include the orange t-shirt itself, correct?
No.
Believe that you just testified that was given a different item number, which was 7-17?
I believe so.
And 7-18-18 also did not include the gray long sleeve shirt either, correct?
I didn't look at 7-17 or 7-18. I only received the debris from.
Okay, well, yeah, that's my point. So with regard to the orange t-shirt and the gray long sleeve shirt, those were given separate item numbers, and you examined what was the debris allegedly from those shirts, right? 7-18.18, correct?
Correct.
And that debris consisted of different categories, did it not?
There were different there were different things inside of it, yes.
Yes, different categories of things, correct?
I'm sure.
All right, so one category was dirt and debris, correct?
Yes.
You did not test the dirt and debris, correct?
Correct.
Another category was, or were, I should say, several apparent hairs.
Yes.
And you did not test those hairs, correct?
Correct.
And another category, I believe you've already testified to, consisted of several pieces of red apparent plastic and one piece of clear apparent plastic that measured 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. Is that accurate?
Okay, so there were several pieces of red apparent plastic and then one piece of clear apparent plastic measuring approximately 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. Yes.
Okay. And I apologize for continually reminding you, but I'm just mindful that everybody needs to hear you. So to the best you can, if you can just keep your voice up, I'll try to do the same. So when those several pieces of apparent red plastic and one piece of apparent clear plastic came into your possession, those pieces were obviously not embedded in either shirt when you examined them, correct?
I don't know. I didn't examine the shirt.
Well, so to my question, the pieces that you saw were not embedded in a shirt when you examined them, correct?
Correct.
And again, that's because you never took possession of any shirt in this case, correct?
Correct.
The pieces were loose and they were not embedded in anything, correct?
The pieces were, well, I examined the debris from the shirt. I don't know what the person who packaged it did to collect that.
I think so, Fender.
And so
I
it
think
goes
so.
without saying that you never saw those pieces on either the orange shirt or the gray long sleeve shirt.
So I think the thing with the debris on the shirt, from what I can understand, what I've gleaned from this, because it's such a mess on direct, is that because some of the items were bagged together, and then also we know that the shirt was on the floor of the ambulance and then on the floor of the hospital room. My guess is that the debris was either they just like put everything, like either they used the shirt as like a scooping mechanism or whatever, or it was just things were put in the bag with the shirt, or it could be debris from the floors of the ambulance or the hospital room. Yeah, I don't think they know that it's from the shirt. I think it's probably not from the shirt.
Sure, correct?
I did not.
And you obviously had no control over how the evidence was handled before it came into your possession, correct?
Interesting. Fender, whoever did your hair that time, was it a different person? If they used a higher level of peroxide when they mixed in with the color, that could explain why it faded to blonde. For whatever reason, maybe they thought that they needed a higher level developer, which is the peroxide, in order to for the color to show up. And so that could be why, if it was a different person, maybe. Yeah, right. I know. So true.
We have a chain of custody in the laboratory, but
Higher volumes.
I did not
not higher level, higher.
follow the evidence as it went through the chain.
Okay, and we'll talk about the chain of custody in a minute.
Right.
Before this evidence came into your possession, you did not witness who seized it, correct?
Correct.
You did not witness who handled it, correct?
Correct.
Before it came into your possession, you don't know who had access to that evidence, correct?
So all of our evidence is stored in locked facilities.
Right, but I guess let me modify that question. Before it came to your lab, you don't know who had access to that evidence, correct?
Correct.
You also don't know, before it came to your lab, whether the shirts in question were at all times kept separate from the red or clear plastic pieces.
There we go. See, yeah, that was one
pieces of
thought.
plastic that were in the possession of certain members of the state police, correct?
Mhm.
Correct.
The chain of custody at the crime lab started with
Chain of custody
noting
was a
the
disaster.
state trooper who actually delivered the evidence to your lab, along with the date, correct?
All right. Could you?
Oh, absolutely. None of this is her fault, right? I think she's nervous because she's young, I think, right? I'm sure she's never testified before, or more than likely. But yeah, I don't think she's weaselly at all. The thing is that with a witness like this who did their job well and who isn't weaselly, if you're the defense attorney, if you're Unetti, you can use them to prove your theory of the case because of all the other fucked up shit that happened, right? And I think that's probably what he's going to end up doing with her. Like, that's what the line of questioning already is pointing that direction, right? Of like all the things that other people did that was fucked up, like prior to her getting the evidence. So she didn't do anything wrong. She tested what she was given. The problem is like how it's the chain of custody, how it was collected, when it was collected, how it was transported, and all that along the way with the chain of custody, which we already know from the previous witness was a disaster. And also Trooper Proctor had his hands in all of that. Yeah, exactly.
Repeat the question.
Sure. The chain of custody at the crime lab starts with noting which state trooper delivered the evidence to your lab.
Yeah, I
and
think
the date
also
that he or she delivered it.
when he
correct?
gets excited,
Or a crime scene responder.
I think this
But
he's
the person
excited.
who drops off the evidence in the laboratory, yes.
Okay. And in this case, which particular state trooper delivered the orange
I
T-shirt
mean, also,
and gray
remember-
long sleeve shirt to your crime lab?
I don't know.
everybody's been told to speak up a bazillion times. I think everybody except the defense attorneys, to be honest, they're the only ones that, seem to have a problem with their voice carrying. So I think that could be part of it too, like just trying to make sure that you're not getting interrupted by being told to speak louder. So I think between being excited and trying to project, that could be also this just sort of how he sounds.
Which
Right. I mean, definitely.
state trooper delivered the pieces of red and clear plastic pieces, I should say?
I do
that
have him on
you just testified about?
1.25.
The item 7-5 to 7-19.
Right. The several pieces of red apparent plastic and one piece of clear apparent plastic measuring an 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. That's what I'm referring to.
Wait, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes. You understand what I'm talking about, right? In terms of the several pieces of red apparent plastic and then the one piece of clear plastic that you have the measurements for?
You're talking about the apparent plastic that I noted in the debris of 7-18.18?
Correct. Which state trooper was it that delivered that?
Do you know?
Trooper Proctor.
Sorry, that's an odd question.
I'm sorry,
I don't know if you want her to repeat it, Ms. Giannetti. Go ahead. You have to repeat that, please.
So evidence is
No,
submitted to,
what you just said that he missed.
oh, I said that's kind of an odd question.
Oh, not for me.
So
Do you have a record of that?
a record of what?
A record of which state trooper delivered that debris to the lab?
So it wouldn't be delivered as like debris. It would be delivered as the individual piece of clothing, which then got assigned item 7-18, I believe. And then as someone analyzes it, each offshoot of that piece of evidence gets a 7-18 point something. So the debris collected from that shirt is 7-18.18.
Okay, all right. Listen, when those several, actually, let me strike that. Get to where I was.
To where he was.
Take your time, Ms. Giannetti.
Okay, so I want to confirm with you that when you were assigned to this case, you were aware that the date of the incident was January 29th of 2022,
Yeah, good
correct?
point, Fender.
Yes.
All right, and it's your testimony that you don't know which state.
Yeah,
trooper
and
delivered-
also experienced witnesses would understand where the line of questioning was going from experience. The other thing is like, and then if you understand that, then you could kind of understand what they're getting at. So I think that's part of it too. Like I agree with what Fender said, that, you know, operating under the assumption that they're honest, but also like, yeah, she wouldn't have any experience in understanding what happens on cross-examination, you know, if that makes any sense. And so like, she might think that she's supposed to, I don't know, like she wouldn't, I could see how she wouldn't understand how to answer it if she didn't understand the point of the question or where the question was going. I know, right? That was so weird. I agree. That was very weird.
The shirts
Hopefully.
to the lab, correct?
I could look at my notes because I have a printed chain of custody.
Sure, if you would check your notes.
Shout
for
out to Super Planner Girl. Yay. Glad you're here, my friend. We just started cross. How's Karen doing? Karen the Orchid.
Okay, so submission 7, which is everything that's item 7- in this case, was submitted by Trooper Michael Proctor, I believe.
Oh, that was the answer to my
Okay.
other question. Thank you. How long after January 29th of 2022, according to your records, did Michael Proctor deliver that clothing to the crime lab?
It was delivered on March 14th, 2022.
Okay, so about 6 weeks or so after January 29th, is that accurate?
Sure.
Given that your lab received this evidence on March 14th of 2022, you can't testify to the chain of custody.
Yep.
of the
Chain of
clothing or the
right.
pieces of
This
plastic
is
prior
exactly what I
to
was
March
saying,
14th of
Fender.
2022, correct?
Correct.
And except for the Taillight housing that was seized by Maureen Hartnett, except for that, your chain of custody at the lab for the 2 shirts plus the pieces of plastic in 7-18.18, that began on March 14th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
So between January 29th of 2022 and March 14th of 2022, you do not know what Michael Proctor did or didn't do with the orange t-shirt and gray long sleeve shirt, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I don't know.
Now, I'd like to discuss with you, if I might, Michael Proctor's submissions of the pieces of plastic that you've testified about. Your lab received
Super Planner
from Michael
Girl.
Proctor several different evidence bags containing
Hope you're
red,
doing
clear,
okay.
and black pieces of plastic, correct?
Glad Karen's good.
Correct.
Some of those evidence bags contain relatively small pieces of plastic in them, correct?
Correct.
And some of those evidence bags contained larger pieces, right?
Correct.
The evidence bags that you received listed the dates of recovery of those pieces of plastic, did they not?
I believe so.
And the evidence bags that you received also listed the officer who recovered the plastic pieces,
Right.
right?
I believe so.
And again, when you receive those evidence bags, whatever numbers are on them, your lab assigns them your item number, correct?
Correct.
So I'd like to ask you first about
Chain of custody.
item number 7-8.
All right, let's go through it.
Do you have a record of that?
Yes.
Now, that
One thing
evidence bag, item number 7-8.
One thing I noticed as I popped in this morning was listening to a little bit on direct. And again, it's just, I can only tolerate Lolly for so much. And we do have a recap tonight. And I was editing the video for week 6 already. So I'm hearing Lolly like all the time, just so y'all know. But it did seem like with these pictures, he wasn't giving the date, at least from the ones I saw, he wasn't giving the date for when they were submitted. And what we know from like other witnesses so far, and I think maybe was it her also from yesterday, it seemed like, right, remember she got involved kind of late on it's not her fault, right? But she didn't get everything and then began her job until quite late in the game. Was it 2023 something? I don't know. But like I just remember like there's a large amount of time and then things were coming in at different times, right? We've already heard about that. So so it's interesting that when Lolly was going through some of those pictures, he wasn't giving the dates that they were submitted.
Contained multiple pieces of red, black, and clear pieces of plastic, correct?
Oh, okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thanks. Contained 14 pieces of red, black, colorless, and silver colored apparent plastic. Yes.
Okay. And the date of collection was February 3rd of 2022?
Go ahead.
Okay. Item 7-8.
Yes.
February 3rd, 2022.
Okay. And that was, if you have that in front of you, that was also collected by a trooper named DeChico, correct?
I have to say, I think she's doing a great job considering this is likely her first time on the stand. She's young, probably newer at the job, right? And this is a high-profile trial on camera being broadcast to the world, and she's being cross-examined by one of the best defense attorneys that I've ever seen. And she may or may not, like I think I was talking about this yesterday. I was wondering if she had any idea some of the issues in this case too, right? Like here she is, she's called for the prosecution, but if she's aware that there were any issues, I mean, she's certainly going to become aware of them on cross. If she didn't know about them already, it's going to become very apparent that there's issues, and not that they were her fault, but they were done beforehand. And again, that would, all those factors combined could make you really nervous, right? So yeah, but I think she's doing a great job. I mean, we see experts that have years of experience
Let me approach you.
get rattled on the stand all the time, right? But it helps too when you don't have anything to hide,
So I
right?
show
When you do
you
anything wrong.
a photograph. Can you identify what that is?
Yes.
What is that?
Also, I love
That is the handwritten label on item 7-8.
like a sage.
That would have
green.
been the evidence bag that your lab received and gave item number 7-8 to it, correct?
Correct.
And that appears to be an exact, photograph.
I don't think
of the
there's an
actual bag.
objection to it, so we
Yeah,
can
that's
just put
true.
it in.
Okay. May I offer that? Your Honor?
Sure. He's offering it. Okay, let's just go. Just
May I just, you
here we
agree
go.
with me that that date,
It's
February
excellent.
3rd of 2022, was only 5 days after the January 29th blizzard, correct?
I don't recall the dates of blizzards, but
Oh, okay. Well,
sorry.
let's put it the date of the incident. You had
Okay.
previously testified that was January 29th, correct?
correct.
All right. And February 3rd was 5 days after that, right?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to show Exhibit 279, please.
Okay.
Now, Exhibit 279, which is displayed on the
Oh, so
screen
now we've got.
this is one of the photos taken of some of the contents of
That is so funny. You remember, guys, how I was just talking about my mouse and how it seemed like when it wasn't paused, you could see it? I don't know why it does this. So, now you can see it. Now it's paused and you can see it. I have no idea. Anyway, it's not a color thing. It's just when it decides to, I have no idea. But here's this round disky thing we were talking about yesterday that is so weird. I don't know. It's weird because I don't see how that could be from the tail light. I meant to do this and I kind of forgot. I'm going to do this soon. I'm going to go to my tail light, and I know all tail lights are different, right? But I'm going to take some pictures because at least some of the components, the designs could be different, but I'm going to take some pictures, and then I'm also going to try testing it out with a hair and seeing what does it take for a hair to stick, how long will it stay, and obviously the conditions are different, but still, right? Like, I think that it might still be valuable to see, like, even if you try to get it to stick, will it, and then also just to kind of just use those as examples. So we'll see. There's no way I can make a duplicate exact thing in any way, shape, or form. It's not a Blizzard, it's summer, and I don't have a Lexus, but no, I'm not going to break it. I know, I was actually thinking when I was driving earlier this morning, I was like looking around on the sides of the roads, because sometimes when there's accidents that happen, some of that debris will be left behind. I was like, oh, I wonder if there's any taillight debris, because I would have scooped it up and used it for
Item 7-8, is it not?
testing. Well, testing.
That's the entirety of the contents of item 7-8.
Okay. You would agree with me that
Yeah, me neither.
those
Well,
were
it
the
definitely
pieces that were
changed
inside that
position
evidence bag,
in between pictures. That was
labeled February
insane.
3rd as the date of recovery, 5 days after January 29th.
5 days after?
Correct.
5 days after.
And you see that there are some relatively small pieces that were allegedly found on February 3rd, correct?
This is like what I was saying on direct, right? We didn't know the date, but what I was saying, and these are not even as small as the other ones I was pointing out before, and a good thing you can see my mouse again, but the last picture on direct, they were actually, if that's a piece and that's a piece, then I take it back. Those are teeny. But there were a number of really teeny ones at the very end of direct I was pointing out, and I was like, how the hell, even if it wasn't days later, I was thinking to myself, how the hell would they have found those, considering it's a blizzard, right? Like, I don't care who you are. Like, we know that they had a certain area they were searching, right? And so all it would have had to do is blow out of that area or get, with snow in a blizzard. Anyway, and also the state crime lab was doing this in the dark, right? And they offered to come back again, during the day. And Lieutenant Tully said, no, don't worry about it, or whatever. So it is odd. It is odd. It's very hard to believe.
Correct.
All right. Now, Your Honor, I'm continually showing photographs. We can turn the lights on and off, whatever the court's preference is.
You can just tell the court officer when you want the lights turned.
Okay, all right.
You mean you'll buy that
They
they
get turned
found
on for
these?
like a question or two, and then I turn them back off. But
However you want to do it.
that's fine. All right, so I'd like to contrast some of those pieces with some of the pieces that were found
This
days
is
and
when I got
weeks
the idea
later
for
by
the song.
Michael Proctor. And I'd like to start first with item 7-13. This is, I'd like to display exhibit 343, which, Mr. Bates, is item 5. Okay, all right. You were previously asked about exhibit 343, which is now displayed on the screen.
Yes.
And that is the first evidence bag submitted by Trooper Proctor, is it not?
So in my, sorry.
And you know, let me rephrase that. He submitted evidence bags all at one time, correct?
Yes.
All on 314. So when I said the first evidence bag, I meant the earliest date of collection. I should have asked it that way. February 8th of 2022.
Sure. I don't know all of the dates that each item was collected on.
Okay, but in any case, those, according to the evidence bag that you received, the contents of that bag, which were, again, pieces of plastic, correct?
Pieces of apparent plastic.
Pieces of apparent plastic. Those were found 5 days after the pieces that you previously testified were found by the Chico, right, on February 3rd?
Correct.
All right. And February 8th was now 10 days after January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Can I have displayed exhibit 346, which is 5A? Okay, looking at exhibit 346, you will agree with me that this particular piece found on February 8th by Trooper Proctor was quite a bit larger than many of the plastic pieces that had been found by Trooper DeChico 5 days earlier on February 3rd, correct?
I mean, there were a variety of sizes of pieces on the other one, but that is what is that, approximately 4-ish inches?
Right, but my point is, Exhibit 346, what's displayed, that plastic piece, is quite a bit bigger than the small pieces that were contained in DeChico's collection, correct?
Then some of those pieces, yes.
Okay. Now I'd like to move on to item 7-15, and if I could show exhibit 352, please, which is item 8, Mr. Bates. Okay. Item 7-15, the evidence bag that supports that lists the law enforcement officer who recovered the plastic pieces as Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
And the date of recovery of those pieces was February 11th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
And again, harkening back to DeChico's evidence bag from February 3rd, this is now 8 days later that these pieces are found, correct?
Correct.
And it's now almost 2 weeks that these pieces are found after January 29th, right? 13 days?
Correct.
All right, if I could show exhibit 355, which is 8A, Mr. Bates. You would agree with me that this particular piece found by Trooper Proctor on February 11th
Right.
is also quite a bit larger than those small pieces that were contained in Trooper DeChico's evidence collection, correct? On February 3rd?
Correct.
All right, I'd like to move on to item 7-16, which is number 9, Mr. Bates.
What exhibit number is this, Mr. Hanley?
And this has not yet been introduced, so I'm about to introduce it. And in fact, why don't I do that first?
Okay.
If I can approach the witness.
Sure. And there's no objection to this, Mr. Lally?
No, no.
Okay.
I'll just have the witness identify it and offer it. Do you recognize what that photo depicts that I've handed to you?
I do.
What is it?
The handwritten label from item 7-16.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, so if I can display exhibit 436, number 9.
Sure.
And again, you just identified that as the bag supporting item 7-16, correct?
Correct.
That also lists the law enforcement officer who recovered the plastic pieces as Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
And the date of recovery of those plastic pieces is February 18th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
So Trooper Proctor is now finding these
Right.
pieces
That's
over
exactly
2
right.
weeks after the
Right. So this is the date, y'all. But they found all the teeny tiny little microscopic ones.
smaller pieces were found by Trooper DeChico, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
February 18th is nearly 3 weeks after January 29th, is it not?
Correct.
All right. If I could show
I'm getting a song ready.
exhibit
Well.
370, I'm sorry, 380, which is 9A, Mr. Bates. You would agree with me that this particular piece found by Trooper Proctor on February 18th is also quite a bit larger than those smaller plastic pieces
Yep.
found by Trooper
Pretty
DeChico
big.
on February 3rd,
That's
correct?
Correct.
This one appears to be about 11 centimeters long, approximately.
Sure.
All right. If I could show exhibit 376.
At least the ruler says scientific on it.
Okay.
Special ruler.
And you would agree with me that this particular piece found by Trooper Proctor on February 18th
Interesting shape.
is also quite a bit larger than those smaller plastic pieces found by Trooper DeChico back on February 3rd, correct?
Correct.
In fact, that appears to be larger than the piece that you just identified in exhibit 380, correct?
Mhm.
The one that was just on the screen?
Right.
Yes.
This one appears to be maybe about 18 centimeters long. Does that seem accurate?
Right. I know.
It's longer than the ruler.
Okay, yeah.
Thunder called it.
And finally, if we could show exhibit 378, which is 9C, Mr. Bates. You would agree with me that this particular piece found by Trooper Proctor on February 18th is even larger than the last one that we just saw, correct?
In length, yes.
Okay. This appears to be about 19 centimeters long.
Oh, this is great.
Longer than the ruler that's up there.
There's some good
I have
stuff here.
I have the actual measurement in my notes.
Sure. Well, and the precise measurement's not important. I'm just getting at the relative comparison. This one's certainly quite a bit larger than the smaller pieces found by Trooper DeChico back on February 3rd, correct?
Correct.
This larger piece of red plastic, like the previous two that you just identified, were all found on February 18th, about 3 weeks after January 29th, correct, according to your records?
Correct.
And regarding these last 3 evidence bags,
You don't.
labeled item number 713, 715, and 716 in February of 2022, from February 8th.
So this is where the defense got their idea and it's not far-fetched at all, right? When the defense gets the evidence, right, in discovery, and no wonder they looked at this and they were like, huh, there's already all these connections between the family that owns the house and law enforcement, all this other stuff. But all you have to do is take a look at the way that everything with the taillight didn't make any sense already. And then you see, oh, so a lot of these pieces were found 20 days later or however long later, and they were found by Trooper Proctor. Like, so you can see where the idea started to kind of come to fruition that maybe they were placed there, right? So yeah.
To the 18th. Those were all plastic pieces collected by
Right.
Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
And in addition to collecting those pieces,
We turn the lights on, Ms. Giannetti?
I'm sorry,
Okay. And we can take that.
All right, I'm just gonna do real quick, a little snippet. I got a song that popped in my head as I was listening to this because we've been talking about all the small things. And this is actually the third time I think already that I've heard her say, just since I started going live, about turning the lights on. So do you guys want to take a guess at what song I'm hinting at, potentially? Because it contains both of those sets of lyrics about all the small things and about turning the lights on / maybe off. But I have never played it, so I'm trying to figure it out. Let's just see. So, okay. All the small things you can, true brings a bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Always, I know you'll be at my show, watching, waiting, coming, rating. I have no. Okay, so I'm just figuring this out as we go. Let's see. How can I do this? Like, because they use an electric guitar. Obviously, this is acoustic. So. I will not go, turn the lights off, carry me home. Yeah. So anyway, I'll keep working on it. But that's what the idea. Yes, that's correct, Blink. I have to try to figure out how to make it sound more electric. But all right, back to the trial.
Down, please.
yes. In addition to collecting those plastic pieces on all those different days, Michael Proctor was also the person to hand deliver those last 3 evidence bags, all on March 14th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
And you do not know what Michael Proctor did or didn't do with those evidence bags of pieces of taillight prior to March 14th of 2022 when your lab received them, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain it. We've already asked that.
Now, the taillight of that Lexus sits in the housing of the Lexus, the taillight housing, such that part of the taillight faces the rear of the car and part of the taillight loops around and faces the passenger side of the car, correct?
Sure.
Right, because it's on the corner.
Sure. Yeah.
You'd agree with me that once you received the final pieces of taillight from Michael Proctor on March 14th, or once your lab received that, you were then able to piece together a majority of the taillight, correct?
So I wasn't assigned this case until later, once everything had already been submitted to the laboratory.
Right. So it was true that after Michael Proctor submitted these pieces of taillight on March 14th, it was after that that you were able to do the reconstruction that you testified about, correct?
Correct.
If I could have
Right.
exhibit 432 displayed, which is image 2151, Mr. Bates.
I have to also say that every time I've always sung along with
Reconstruction,
all the
final
small things,
reconstruction that
I
you were
always sing the
able to
harmony
do.
part.
You would agree with
I'll have
me
these.
that there's one section of that taillight that was missing completely, correct?
Correct.
And that missing section is noticeably visible in your reconstruction, is it not?
Yes,
And do you still have that laser pointer there?
I do.
Would you please point to the section of taillight that's missing? Okay. Appears to be a hole on the upper left side of that exhibit.
Is that a question?
Yes, it actually was. I should have said right or correct, but I didn't.
Yes.
Okay. And you would agree with me, and if we could zoom back out, Mr. Bates, you would agree with me that the portion of taillight that you did not have was strictly on the rear side of the taillight, if I can call it that.
I am not sure what orientation that goes on to a car.
But in any case, to this day, you do not know where the pieces that make up that whole are or what happened to them, correct?
I do not.
I may have a moment.
Okay.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right.
All
Mr.
right.
Vallier.
Wow. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Fender, it's All the Small Things by Blink 182.
Now, Mixed Vallier, in reference to item 7-17 and 18, the orange t-shirt and the gray sweatshirt, fair to say you never actually physically saw those items, correct?
The clothing? No, I did not.
Now, the debris that was provided, are you familiar with?
So
how
hold on, let me go back
process-
just a second.
who, got those debris?
But I didn't.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
And
right.
you would agree with me, and if we could zoom back out, Mr. Bates,
Okay.
You would agree with me that the portion of the tail light that you did not have was
Ah,
sitting on the rear side of the tail light, if I can call it that.
okay. So this is significant, right? Because she's putting all these things together as in one piece. And their goal, right, if they've collected all these pieces, would be to be able to reconstruct it and have everything there, right? They should be able to reconstruct the taillight in its entirety. But this is missing. And this, it's on the rear. Tell you what. And look at this, the size and the shape of it. That's, again, I've broken my taillight more than once. That looks very much like what it would look like if you backed into something. And that's what that looks like. And that's the piece that's missing. But they have the rest of it. Oh, fucking hell, right? I mean, what if she backed into something when she was leaving the bar, for example, the bar? Again, these are so easy to break, you guys. They look really sturdy, but remember, there's a lot of these, because there's lights, these surfaces in there like reflect and make it look sturdy. It's just thin pieces of plastic. It's really easy to break. And like I described it as, like, I gave that example the other night of like sheets of glass or sheets of ice, like on top of a lake. So if that happened somewhere else, they wouldn't have it. Fucking hell. And then remember, we even heard it from Mr. Red Solo Cups guy talk about how when they were trying to remove the taillight, they broke it into a bunch of pieces that shattered. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. So Fender saying EDB made a brilliant part, which is that the only broken part witnesses didn't see after the. Is that the only? Right. That's right. Of course. Right. The whole. Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's what they described. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. 100%. Right. I see what you're saying. You're okay. Right. Oh, Fender, we have a picture. Yay. Excellent. Your hair looks way darker than I was thinking, but beautiful.
I am not sure what orientation that goes on to a car.
Okay. But in any case, to this day, you do not know where
I guess it's
pieces
outside of her.
that make up that whole are or what happened to them, correct?
I do not.
Fucking hell. They don't
Give
have
me a
it.
moment.
Okay.
So there you go. There you go. They don't have the insane.
All right,
Insane.
Mr.
They've
Vallier.
all the other pieces. That's wild, y'all. Holy shit.
Now, Mixed Vallier, in reference to item 7-17 and 18, the orange t-shirt and the gray sweatshirt,
I don't know. Do
fair
we
to say
even
you
want
never
to?
actually physically saw those items, correct?
I don't care about
The clothing? No, I did not.
Hi, Lolly.
Now,
Let's see
the
if there's a reprint. Oh, she's
Morning
done.
break now.
Okay, I think there's a break. Yep. All right, let's go forward. We're
People
gonna have a new
will
witness.
take the morning break.
New witness.
All rise to the court, please.
This is gonna be witness number 54, I believe. Another youngin, another spring chicken. Oh, great.
I really need you to keep your voice up.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a level 2 in terms of the hair level color things.
All right. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Vallier.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Sure. It's Christina Hanley. Hanley is spelled Hanley.
Fender, I'm terrible at guessing age, but like I think she's probably around the same age as the last. I was gonna say girl, the last witness, right? I would think. But we'll see how much experience she has, because assuming she got a job right out of
What do
college.
you do for work now?
I am a forensic scientist
I'll
at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
And how long have you been at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory?
I have been there for approximately 16 years.
Now, ma'am, if I could ask you
What?
a little bit about your
Wait.
educational background, starting with where did you go?
Did you guys hear that? Hold on. Let's listen to that. Doesn't make any sense. Sorry, I'm not that bad at math, but that doesn't make any sense.
And what do you do for
Listen.
work, ma'am?
I am a forensic scientist at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
And how long have you been at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory?
I have been there for approximately 16 years.
16 years.
If I could
How?
ask you just a little bit
Pardon
about
me?
your educational background, starting with where did you go and what, if any, degree did you receive
What?
with regard to your undergraduate?
Hold on.
I have a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a concentration in Forensics from Merrimack College.
And then after receiving
Okay.
those degrees from Merrimack, where did you go from?
I
What degree? Bachelor.
began working at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab in 2008.
Okay. Okay.
And from
So,
your work there in 2008.
Math. Okay. So if she did a bachelor's degree, she would have been 21, maybe 22. We'll put her at 21 just because that's, we'll err on the younger side. So at a minimum, she would have been 21 because she didn't get a master's degree or anything. So she would have been 21. And then she went straight from there into the crime lab. So 21 plus 16 is 37. Now, if she was 22 when she graduated, which also is possible because some people go to college at 18, like depending on where your birthday is. Like I would think I was already 18 when I started college. Then she would be 38. What? I don't understand, guys. Yeah, she's minimum 37. Exactly. That's the youngest she could be. Unless she was one of those kids that jumped ahead like 10 grades in school. I mean, I'm saying 10 grades because like, I don't know how to explain the age thing. I mean, no one ever does that. They might go 1 grade or 2 grades, but like, yeah, I don't know. I don't understand.
Hey, what did you do?
Wild.
So I began as a chemist 1 in the drug identification unit. Once I completed my training in there, I was promoted to a chemist 2. In 2009, I transferred into the trace unit.
What did EDB say about her age?
As a chemist 2, which is the equivalent of a forensic scientist 2
This
currently.
is insane, y'all.
And in
I need to change.
2017,
Wait,
I was promoted to a forensic
her name?
scientist
Christina?
3 in the trace arson and explosives unit.
And if you could describe for the jury sort of the difference between a forensic scientist or a chemist 1, forensic scientist 2, forensic scientist 3 within your lab.
She was at the MSP Crime Lab.
Sure.
still, right?
So forensic scientist 2 is considered like a bench analyst working on casework.
Hey,
Forensic-
Ms. Hanley, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up really loud,
I feel like
okay?
she's doing a good job.
A forensic scientist 3 is a unit supervisor, and also perform casework.
And how long is it you've
Wait,
been
what?
a forensic scientist 3 or a supervisor within the trace unit?
I have been a supervisor since 2017 for approximately 7 years.
Fucking hell.
Now, Ms.
Like,
Hanley,
I'm
in
yelling
reference
as much as I
to,
can.
starting in general terms with trace unit, if you could describe to the jury what is the trace unit and what type of analyses are done within that unit.
Sure. So
I
the
do
type of
wonder-
examination
Okay,
that
so
we-
she's going to be easy to compliment. Obviously, she's got the secret to youth. But I do wonder, too, if her hairstyle and her glasses also make her look younger. Having said that, obviously, she's going to look young for her age, looking at her skin and her face. But I do think also that, not that it's shouting, I'm not saying she's trying to look younger, but I think that also could contribute. Yeah. And so she did say it was still Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, right? I believe she said that. It was so hard it's just the age thing was distracting.
do in the trace arson and explosives unit. I examine and compare trace evidence such as paint, fibers, hair,
Wait.
glass, tape, miscellaneous items, and I also
Yes.
do physical match examinations as well as serial number restorations on firearms.
What type of training did you receive at the lab?
So I received in-house training as well as some external training. The in-house training
Yeah, I'm gonna go for
consisted
her
of
experience and stuff.
required reading evidence such as
Let's go forward.
due to the multiple sub-disciplines in trace.
I wonder if she's going to have tested maybe the scratch on the Lexus because paint.
I do typically perform instrumental analysis.
Now, specifically when it comes to
Yeah, she is confident. I
you
agree.
have a variety
Yeah.
of sort of sub-disciplines or different types of testing or casework that you do. Is that correct?
Yes.
Specifically as it applies to an analysis or an examination of items of glass. What, if any, experience or what types of cases would it be that you've looked at those types of items in the past?
So I have examined glass numerous times from a variety of different types of cases. For example, a hit and run or a B&E.
A who? B&E?
As far as the types of, are there different types of glass that you've performed examinations on in the past as well?
There, yes, I mean, there could be a variety of types
I'm
of,
not
type of
even
glass
clear
that
on what
I
this
could come
theory
across for
is, other
examination.
than Karen did it. I don't know what, I feel like there's not clear.
With respect to examination of glass, what are some of the steps or what is the process or what, if any, instrumentality are you using to conduct your examination?
Oh, thank you, Fender. Yeah.
So when I examine an item that is glass, I document it with photos and
my
notes.
thought, she's probably going to be the one. Okay, my guess is this is for the structural makeup of glass, right? Because there's been a lot of mix-ups with the glass and the plastic. However, some of those make no sense because the ones that are clearly plastic they call glass and like whatever. But the other lady was like how things fit together. My guess is this is the actual makeup because the previous witness, I said lady, previous witness also, used the same languaging such as like apparent glass, apparent plastic, but didn't. She's not there to testify as to what things are. My guess is that's what this lady's doing.
Making general observations of appearance, color.
Yeah.
I examine a portion microscopically and observe certain optical properties.
Yep. Okay, cool.
And then I will
We need this.
also
we need this
check
information.
to see if
Now,
it
having said
fluoresces under UV light. And I also will sample it.
I am probably, let's just see if we can get to cross because obviously, as always, we will, and when we do our recaps, we will go through and hear what, if anything, from direct is important or whatever and get some, but I'm curious how long he's still going with her. And again, this is witness number 54. Let's see where this takes us.
Together, because they were found to have a physical match by the analyst who previously examined the item.
Great. Importantly, E, I, and L.
Excellent. All right, we're on cross. I wonder if this is where they switch over. That would be crazy. Karen's wearing white today. Or cream, beige, eggshell, maybe. Eggshell, maybe. You know what would be crazy? I'm sure there's people who are like experts at the different shades of white, for example. Well, they're probably experts at colors, but because they all have these names like eggshell versus off-white versus cream versus beige. Like I wouldn't know which one's which. Wait, what? Oh.
You are unmuted.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we had to call somebody.
So the last
And just
category we're
looking
talking
through
about, 7-14, that was a single
Okay.
piece of glass.
I'm going
correct?
to try to cover.
That's correct.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to ask you to take your comparisons one at a time, if I can. You compared the cup
Is he on the stand already,
3-2
Fender?
to the 9 pieces recovered at the scene. A, B, C, D, E, F,
Is he on the
I,
stand right
J,
now?
and L, correct?
Is that 7-12 you're talking about?
7-12. Thank you.
Sorry, can you say the letters again? I just don't know if I heard all of them.
Okay, I'm going to go
A,
forward a
B,
little
C,
bit.
D, E, F, I.
No, I don't have a
Used
go.
both, well, you used a variety, it sounds like, of
Okay.
analyses, including microscopy, UV
All right.
light,
I'm going to make an
the glass
executive decision.
refractive index,
I'm going to make an
Graham
executive
process, correct?
decision.
That's correct.
You also used the FTIR, is that right?
Y'all, again, we're going to recap everything. I'm going to make an executive decision because we've been waiting for this. We'll learn how much was fucked up when we do it on the recap. But there he is. He looks exactly how I imagined in my mind. That is so funny. He's definitely got Eastern European heritage. I hope they ask where he's from. This will be the first and only time if Lolly asks for like background and where somebody's from that I would ever care. Because normally it's irrelevant. But here, because yeah, I love, I have that in my DNA and I speak Russian and some Ukrainian. Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime, guys, Yeah, let's go. And now it's real deal. Actually, I can probably, how far are we? We'll put on. He looks just like how I pictured. That is crazy. Wow.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Wow. Wait. Oh my God.
Good afternoon.
Change my banner.
Please state your name and spell your last name. For the
Hold on.
record.
Yes, sir. My name is Yuriy Bukhenik, spelled Y-U-R-I-Y, last of B-U-K-H-E-N-I-K.
Okay.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm employed by the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been a trooper with the state police?
I've been a trooper since 2012.
And prior to being employed as a trooper with the state police, excuse me, what, if any, other employment or background do you have as far as law enforcement is concerned?
My law enforcement career began in 2003 when I graduated from the military police school in Fort Leonard, Missouri.
I mean, clearly he was born in the U.S., so that's kind of a bummer. Let me go back, though, for his name. Should I do it in Cyrillic? Maybe I'll do it in Cyrillic and English.
Last of B-U-K-H-E-N-I-K.
And how are you employed?
Hold on.
I'm employed by
Let me hear that
last
again.
of B-U-K-H-E-N-I-K.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm employed by the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been a trooper with the state police?
I've been a trooper since 2012.
And
So it's
prior to
challenging
being
for me
employed,
because the names
with
don't
state
make
police-
sense in English. Let me hear it one more time.
I've been a trooper since 2012.
Sorry, I just need to get
Last of B-U-K-H-E-N-I-K.
And how are you employed, sir?
KH.
I'm employed by the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been a trooper with the state police?
I've been a trooper since
All right, cool.
2012.
And prior to being employed as a trooper with the state police, excuse me, what, if any, other employment or background do you have as far as law enforcement is concerned?
My law enforcement career began in 2003 when I graduated from the military police school in Fort Leonard, Missouri, while I was enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. From there,
wow.
I was stationed at
Marine Corps.
Quantico, Virginia, with the Marine Corps Presidential Helicopter Squadron. I provided security for the presidential helicopter and assets, attaining a top secret Yankee White clearance. I was promoted meritoriously to corporal and sergeant.
I don't think you could actually, I don't know this for a fact. If anyone wants to look it up, I don't think you could serve in the Marines if you're not a citizen. Well, these are questions I don't know. I will say, I don't know that much about the pathway to citizenship because I feel like I don't know. I don't feel like I know enough to say for sure. Like, I suppose, okay, that's one thing. And the second thing is like, I guess you have to be a citizen to serve in the military. I don't have any law enforcement or military in my family anywhere. So I don't know. But he served in the Marines and then he had some sort of special title here. He was just saying here, let me rewind it in here. But I'm wondering if that would be available to him if he wasn't born here.
And 3 when I graduated from the military police school in Fort Leonard, Missouri, while I was enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. From there, I was stationed at Quantico, Virginia, with the Marine Corps
Quantico. Come on.
Presidential Helicopter Squadron. I
Yeah.
provided security for the presidential helicopter and assets.
I would imagine they want a U.S. citizen for that, but I could be completely wrong. Anybody who knows the military, let us know. But I wonder too, he said he was in Missouri for a time. The accent could be like Missouri accent combined with Boston, but I hear predominantly Boston, I would say.
Attaining a
Or,
top
you know,
secret
master-
Yankee White clearance.
Yes. Yeah.
I was promoted
White
meritoriously
clearance?
to corporal and sergeant.
I will say I've heard that term before, Yankee White clearance. That is a big deal. Because that Yankee White is your security for the president. Yeah.
And had a platoon of 44 Marines. From there, I was stationed
Wow.
in Camp Pendleton, California,
Wow.
where I was a patrol supervisor on base
Yes.
as a military police officer.
Wow.
Once my enlistment ended,
Wow.
I decided to come home and
Wow.
pursue a law enforcement career here in Massachusetts,
Home,
in the
so I
communities
guess-
that I grew up in.
All right. Well, there you have it. He grew up in
I first
Kingston.
worked for the VA
All right.
Hospital Police,
There you go.
where I attained a secret clearance, which was a requirement of the employment.
Another secret thing.
After that, I worked at the Attleboro Police Department
Holy
in uniform patrol, as well as the SWAT team
Wow.
at the Attleboro, Massachusetts Police Department. In
Wow.
2011, I applied for the Massachusetts State Police, graduated and worked at the Sturbridge Barracks, Millbury Barracks.
Honestly,
And-
it's crazy that after all that experience, he still had to like apply to work for the police. This is definitely the most experienced and impressive law enforcement resume we've heard yet. Wow.
Foxborough Barracks.
Holy
In
shit.
2015, I was selected to come to the Norfolk
The
District
only way it could get more impressive is if he was like, oh yeah, also I was a Navy SEAL.
Attorney's Office with the detective unit and worked homicide cases as a trooper. 2021,
Wow.
December, I was promoted and took on a supervisory role within the unit.
Wow.
Now, with respect to your work within the unit,
I would agree.
of the detective unit at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, what if any specialized training did
Wow.
you receive in regard to your work there?
I've attended numerous
It's not easy
homicide
to get
conferences,
the Yankee
training
correct.
in
That's like one of the
various
hardest things.
aspects of digital device analysis and
there's-
investigations in
Right?
major crimes, homicides, drug investigations,
Wow.
and so forth.
Now, were you working in that capacity with the State Police Detective Unit on January 29th, 2022?
I was.
And were you on call that day?
I was on call as a supervisor.
Now, can you explain to the jury as far as the on-call system within the detective units? Well, let me ask you this first. What, if any, duties or responsibilities do you have
no,
as sergeant
look,
or as a
No,
supervisor?
I
with
don't. We're
reference
not going to go through
on-call
this,
duties
Wally.
or how that works?
That's like an afterthought.
As a
Wally
supervisor on call,
He was going to ask another.
formulated, it's
question,
compiled
and then he added
the month
another one
prior.
on of it.
So for example, if it was December, beginning of December, the troopers in the office would submit their days.
We haven't heard as much. I mean, it sounds like he showed up with Proctor some of the times, like for the interviews and stuff. But I feel like the most of the times that we've heard of his name, it was in regard. Oh my God, fucking Lollyisms. Was with interviews with people. But whenever they're really hitting it hard with like some of the clearly fucked up shit, like the evidence, for example, I think we only heard Proctor being involved with that and not him. So I don't know. And again, I haven't done any research outside of what we've heard in trial. So, well, it'll come out in cross. That's for sure.
Requesting not to be on call due to trials, training, personal reasons, or vacations they had planned. Those days are submitted in the beginning of the month. And then if it's in the beginning of December, for example, the on-call schedule for January is
Are we
then
still going over on-call?
compiled
Okay.
a month in advance, really.
We're going to go forward a little bit.
Trooper Proctor began making phone calls, gathering information.
Here we go.
Sustained. Next question.
What was the next thing that happened as far as your involvement was concerned?
Because Trooper
I was
Proctor has to
advised
testify to that.
of the circumstance.
We've talked about this several times. I think there is a game going on, if you want to call it that, with the both sides trying to bait each other into calling Trooper Proctor, because it's like this one side only wants to call him only if the other side doesn't do it first, type thing. Like, because we've seen this going both ways, where they object to something where it's like there was one, I think it was yesterday, where the Trooper Proctor's signature, I actually pointed it out. I was like, yeah, they chose to object to that. I think that was for the prosecution objecting, because they were trying, it's like, and the defense was asking the question, right? That was at the end of Miss Hartnett's testimony, I believe. And so it's like, if you want to get that information, you have to call him, right? And now this is a similar thing. The defense just objected. What was it, a phone call or something he made? And he wasn't even going to testify to the contents, it didn't sound like. So I guess you could still maybe object with hearsay, not that they state the legal grounds, but still, even if it's not a phone, like it still could be hearsay, because it's like, or speculation rather, right? Like if that witness needs to testify to it. So now the defense, but we've seen both sides doing this back and forth with Trooper Proctor. It's like a game of chicken. It's so crazy. I wonder what's going to happen though.
Circumstances under which the body was located and what was transpiring. And I told Trooper Proctor that I would start shoveling out during the blizzard and then proceed to
go back a bit.
meet him in Canton to begin our investigation.
Go back a bit. Fender says, okay.
I was advised of the circumstances under which the body was located and what was transpiring. And I told Trooper Proctor that I would start shoveling out during the blizzard and then proceed to meet him in Canton to begin our investigation.
And where was it that you and
Right.
Trooper Proctor
Yes.
met up on that particular?
Absolutely.
We met at the Canton Police Department.
And do you recall approximately what time it was that you arrived at the Canton Police Department?
It was approximately 9:15. Due to the amount of snow that was on the ground, the time that it took me to shovel out the main roads, actually no roads were plowed at the time during my track. So I decided to drive my
That's
personal
definitely
truck to
correct.
Canton Police Department because it was a 4-wheel drive and meet Trooper Proctor there.
Now, as far as your personal truck versus you have a work vehicle as well,
That's correct.
and you mentioned that the truck is 4-wheel drive. What is the difference between your personal truck and its capabilities in weather versus the work vehicle?
This
Well, at the
makes
time, there
sense,
was
right?
approximately
No,
10, 15 inches of snow that had accumulated already. My
Sorry.
work vehicle
I
is
don't believe that they do not have vehicles at the police department that are capable of. I can't. I'm sorry. Like emergency first responders, police, they have to go out in all weather, and this is outside of Boston. This is just like we heard with all these other cops saying that they'd never done a crime scene search in a blizzard, or I think they were even asked like with that type of snow. It's like, sorry, what? We're not in Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like a 4-wheel drive fender is a vehicle, as they say in law enforcement typically. It's a vehicle, a car, right? That has capabilities that allow it to drive better with snow, with ice, or even things like in mud or sand or, rough terrain. Because most cars that are just regular cars are like front wheel drive. And then you can also have rear wheel drive, which is like a halfway point in terms of its capabilities. And then 4-wheel drive is like better for the snow. However, having said that, a lot of vehicles here have that. That's very common. It's not hard to get 4-wheel drive. It's not a special thing. It's really common. In fact, even there's like sedans and stuff that can have that. So it's not like it needs to be like a monster truck or whatever. But having said that, I find it hard to believe that the police department does not have vehicles that are equipped to drive in the snow. It's just not plausible to me. Right. They might have it. Right. That's true. But we'll see what he says. But he's trying, from what he said so far, where I paused it, it sounds like he's saying his vehicle does better. That's what's crazy to me.
sedan.
What you're saying, Fender, would make a lot more sense if he was like, yeah, that's the reason I took my own vehicle. But if he's saying it's because their vehicles aren't equipped for driving the snow, I'm sorry, I just don't.
Low to the ground, low clearance,
See?
front wheel drive.
That's what
It
he's
would
saying.
not be
Front
able
wheel
to
drive.
navigate the road
I literally just said front wheel drive.
conditions.
I don't believe this at all. Sorry. You only have front wheel drive vehicles at the police department in Massachusetts?
At the time,
No.
my 4-wheel drive vehicle is higher clearance from the roadway and was
Probably
able
not
to
many,
navigate
Fender.
the conditions at the time.
And sir, when you arrived, so at approximately 8:22 in the morning or so, where is it
Absolutely.
that,
Yep.
that you were at that point in time, if you know?
At 8:22, I would say I was still blowing the
Right.
snow out of my driveway, clearing the path from.
So I lived in Boone, right, as y'all know, for like 11 years, and that's not nearly as much snow as Massachusetts in this area, but we would get a lot of snow. People, when they would move there or whatever, they would specifically sell their car and get something with 4-wheel drive for that reason, or rear wheel drive, because if you had front wheel drive only, you were going to have a hard time for a lot of the year, and maybe not be able to get out. And so when it comes to first responders, who even when it's snow, there's a blizzard, or it's like these are the only places that stay open no matter what the weather, right? When everything else would be closed due to inclement weather. I don't care if it's wherever the place is, tornado, rocks, landslide, whatever, tsunami. I mean, essentially when everything's going to shit, the first responders are still have to be able to do their job. And when everything's going to shit, that's when they're going to be needed the most. It's not plausible that they only have front wheel drive cars. I'm sorry. Like, again, even in Boone, that wouldn't be the case. And that's not nearly as much snow.
My truck to leave the driveway.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And, when you arrive at the campus,
Even in a volcano. Yes,
you mentioned that
exactly.
Trooper Proctor there.
Even in a
Possible arrive
volcano.
first.
Yep. 365.
Trooper Proctor was in the parking lot in his vehicle, and I pulled in, backed in next to his, and we walked in together into the police department, I believe.
Fuck, let's think back to the beginning of this trial, which was like 100 years ago. How much testimony did we hear hours on end about shoveling the freaking apron at the where the ambulances were and shit, right? That's like, they literally, everyone said the first thing they did before they even like walked in the door was they started shoveling the fucking apron so they could get out. And there was no discussion about their ambulances not being able to drive in the snow. It was just a matter of being able to get out, which is understandable, right? Because the snow blows up against the door thing.
And when you walked into the Canton Police Station on that morning, sometime after 9 a.m., where is it that you went? Who, if anyone, did you talk to when you first got there?
We walked into the police department, were guided to the detective department division of the PD, and we met with the detectives from Canton and Sergeant Good, who was the uniform patrol sergeant and having been the first responder to the scene as well.
Now, without reference to anything that was communicated between the two of you, at some point prior to getting to the Canton Police Station, did you have conversations with Trooper Proctor?
Yes, I did.
And did Trooper Proctor make you aware of
Right? I know.
had with
Yeah.
other people prior
Not to mention they were all drunk and still driving. Great point,
to
Fender.
getting to the Canton Police Station?
Great point.
No, I'll allow that. That's a yes or no.
Yes.
Sergeant.
And so you get to the Canton Police Station, you and Trooper Proctor then proceed to talk to Sergeant Good, is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, without any reference to what was said to you by Sergeant Good, he relayed some information to you as well.
That's correct.
No, I'll allow that.
That's correct.
And if you know about how long was the period of conversation that you had with Sergeant Good at the Canton Police Station?
The conversation with Sergeant Good was probably 25 to 30 minutes. He walked us through his.
Next question, please, Mr. Vallier. I'm going to stop you from answering that, Sergeant.
They haven't called him Good yet.
Sergeant Bukhenik, in
either.
reference to.
And remember-
At some point, did you learn the name?
Newly promoted, I'll use Brian Higgins' words, newly promoted Sergeant Good was the guy who was there, who Higgins was trying to throw under the bus, apparently, for the missing surveillance footage that would have shown him at the police station, what he was doing, his whereabouts, his times, all that, right? All that footage is just, it's just missing. And they have not called him yet, the prosecution. To my knowledge, I don't think, I'll double check, but I don't think they
Name
have.
of the body or the person that was found on the lawn on Fairview Road?
Yes, I did.
Who did you learn him to be?
Mr. John O'Keefe.
I don't,
And in reference to where Mr. O'Keefe's body was at that point, what, if any, information did you receive about that?
I'll allow that.
We learned that Mr. O'Keefe's body was transported to the hospital, Good Samaritan Hospital in Brockton.
And
I'm
in
looking,
reference to the
Thunder.
Samaritan Hospital in Brockton, who, if anyone else?
Oh, it does say he testified.
That facility as
I
well?
just don't remember because it was such a long time ago. But I don't recall them asking him what happened to the video. Maybe they didn't have the foundation for it yet. So that's interesting. Now, having said that, of course, the defense could always call him in their case in chief. But I don't remember hearing, because remember, we were all like, I made a squirrely crystal ball prediction for fun as soon as Higgins said newly promoted, that's when I was like, oh, the footage is definitely missing. Like, haha, like it can't possibly be that fucked. And then like literally that's what it was. But no one, including myself, had like, that was news from Higgins. That's when we first learned that. Unless we all just forgot, which is possible because it was such a long fucking time ago. And with Lolly,
Oh, in relation to.
Oh, right. Right.
I'll allow that.
The defendant.
Okay. I remember that. Yes.
And,
I don't
just to
remember
clear
them.
some points over the
yeah,
course of your
I don't remember them talking about the surveillance footage though. I guess they didn't have the foundation. Okay. Yeah. I remember the leaf blower. I do, but that's the whole I feel like that's what the testimony was about essentially, right?
investigation. Had you had
Right.
or have you had interactions with Karen Reed?
Yes, I have.
And to be clear, when we say as far as Karen Reed, the defendant,
We know Wally.
Yes, I do.
can you identify just as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She's seated between her legal defense team wearing the white blouse.
Showing us that's a record.
He called it white.
Yes.
Not eggshell.
So upon having that conversation with Sergeant Good at the Canton Police Station, where is it that you and Trooper Proctor went next?
From the Canton Police Department, we proceeded to the McCabe residence.
And that was over on Country Lane, is that correct?
That's correct, number 12, Country Lane.
And when you arrived there, as far as transportation to that, is it you and Trooper Proctor in the same vehicle?
Yes, I made the decision to drive us. That way we only take one vehicle. In addition
I'm sorry.
to
This whole
Trooper
thing with
Proctor
cars
being
is
able to
ridiculous.
make phone calls and facilitate other logistics as necessary, allowed him that freedom to do so while I operated the vehicle
mean,
in the dangerous snow conditions.
This isn't, I'm sorry. I don't. Not to mention, they know somebody with a freaking snowplow. Should they be struggling in their, and I mean, in places with a lot of snow, they put chains on the tires and then they don't like even need 4-wheel drive. This is just stupid.
And the snow conditions that you were talking about as far as
Yeah.
the driveway, the drive to the Canton Police Station, did those conditions persist throughout the day of the 29th?
Yes, they did.
And so you make your way over to the McCabe residence.
I think they've moved the offender.
Who, if anyone, did you speak
I,
with?
I think everybody has moved and rehomed. They've rehomed their homes, they've rehomed their pets, and they've rehomed their phones. So I think it's okay. Because yeah,
McCabe residence, I'm more.
this was their.
We first spoke with Miss Jennifer McCabe. We then spoke with Mr. Matt McCabe, and then we spoke with Mr.
Pat McCabe.
Brian Albert.
And with reference to each of those conversations,
Right, 'cause they were all at the
done
same house.
collectively or separately, or how were those
Yeah.
interviews conducted?
Each interview was conducted separately. We first interviewed Miss Jennifer McCabe with request of Mr. McCabe to give us privacy. He proceeded upstairs. Once we were done with that interview, Mr. McCabe came downstairs, and Miss McCabe gave us the same courtesy. And once that interview was over, Mr. Brian Albert had arrived, and we interviewed him
Right.
briefly.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
that sort of the typical
And
process?
honestly, it would have been, if they wanted to really play up the whole harassment thing, they could have been like, yeah, we moved because we were getting harassed. And then, yeah, nothing fishy about that, right? Yes, Matt McCabe, I call him Meerkat McCabe. But yeah, that's Jen's husband. That's the dude who brought out the phone with the flashlight. That's so fucking funny.
Process of how each your unit conducts interviews with
I think that's right around when you started joining.
Yes, with cooperating civilians, we
Maybe with him on the
typically advise them they were going to be, we schedule an interview. We proceed to their location of convenience and separate them and get their version of recollection of events that we are inquiring about.
Now, after you spoke with those three individuals, so yourself and Trooper Proctor at the McCabe residence, where is it that you and Trooper Proctor went next?
We proceeded to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Brockton.
And where within the Good Samaritan Hospital did you go?
We went to the emergency department.
And within the
It's a funny
emergency
name for a
department,
hospital. Every time I hear it, I think they're talking about Good
Yes, we were.
Samaritan, like
and
help her on the
what
road.
things Did you observe when you were in that?
Once in the room, we observed Mr. O'Keefe's body on the medical bed or gurney, and his clothing, which had been cut off of him, were on the floor at the foot of the bed, a couple of feet away at the foot of the bed.
Okay.
Now, first, with regard to the clothing.
At least you didn't
what
try to hide
things
that.
did
That's
you
good.
do, with regard to that?
After viewing Mr. O'Keefe's body, we proceeded to identify the clothing items and bag them into evidence bags, notating which item and a brief description about each item of clothing.
So let me ask you just a little bit about that as far as that process is concerned. So when an item of evidence is collected by you or by your units during the course of an investigation,
Unit.
is there sort of a policy or protocol, or how are things, what do you do with things when you collect them and take them into custody and evidence?
If we deem an item to be of evidentiary value, we identify the item, we take a brief description of it, and we label the evidence bag with that description. We notate who's taking the item into custody, typically who located the item, the time that it's located, and the location from which it was seized or taken or collected.
And with regard to items of clothing, is that something that would be placed in just one big bag of clothes, or like how would those be packaged in evidence bag?
Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, which was already in one big pile on the floor, we packaged all.
Okay, jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch.
Approach. Okay, let's go forward while they approach.
Position on the floor.
There you go.
So I'm sorry, Sergeant Bukhenik. When you come into the hospital room where Mr. O'Keefe's body was, there's clothing items that are on the floor, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you recall how those clothing items were in relation to each other, in relation to the floor?
They were positioned on the floor in a pile stacked on top of each other, and they were in a condition of being soaking wet.
And with respect to those clothing items, do you recall what those clothing items were individually?
Yes, sir.
And what were they?
They were a plaid pair of boxer underwear. It was a orange colored design print t-shirt. It was a blue pair of Lucky brand jeans, a belt, two-tone gray, light, thin hooded sweatshirt, and a right sneaker, black in color with white design and a Nike brand.
And how many sneakers were there contained within that property?
One right sneaker.
And what, if any, observations did you make of the condition beyond them being soaking wet?
I also recognized, due to the aroma and visual observations, traces of vomit on the clothing.
And with regard to those items that you observed on the floor, what, if anything, did you and or Trooper Proctor do with reference to those clothing items?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Once we went through the clothing, we collected each item and put it into a large evidence bag. We double bagged it due to the wetness of the clothing, so it would not seep through. We also identified the fact that there was only one sneaker. So I requested that Trooper Proctor contact the paramedics that transported Mr. O'Keefe from 34 Fairview to the hospital and have them once again check their ambulance to see if there was another sneaker inadvertently left behind in the ambulance vehicle.
Prior to sort of physically touching this or any other piece of evidence, what, if any, other sort of precautions do you take prior to handling, tactile handling any piece of evidence?
Anytime we handle evidence, which obviously we take great caution not to destroy, alter, or discard any evidence, we also put on gloves in order to help preserve that item.
What does he think about the red
And
Solo
in
cups?
reference to these items or items of anything of evidentiary value that you seize as evidence, once you take it and secure it into an evidence bag, what happens to it from there?
Once it's secure in the evidence bag, it is sealed and logged into our evidence storage facility at the office. And then as necessary, it is signed out, shipped off for processing, review, or court proceedings.
And as far as that sealing is concerned, how are bags or boxes of items of evidentiary value, how are they sealed?
Once the bag is,
I'll allow it. I'll
What-
allow it.
thank you, Your Honor. Once the bag is sealed, we utilize tape, typically red or yellow tape. Once it's secured, we initial and date the tape on the edge. That procedure helps identify the time and date it was sealed and by who with the initials.
And then once that bag or box is sealed, if that bag or box is subsequently opened at a later time, what, if any, notation or what, if any, recordation of that is made?
Anytime a piece of evidence is signed out for review, it's logged in the tracking system. In addition, anytime a piece of evidence is open, with a container being the bag or a box is open and the tape is cut, it is then resealed, reinitialed, and dated by the trooper or an individual who's signing that evidence out and then returning it.
As far as the evidence bag or box is concerned, when it's been opened, is that something that is noticeable based on the sealing and resealing of that particular receptacle?
Yes, sir. It is definitely noticeable, and it's noted in the systems.
Now, with regard to, you mentioned or made some mention earlier in the testimony in
Okay.
regard to evidence storage.
I want to
facilities
say
that
something
there
real
are.
quick. Okay, what are y'all saying? So, right, I know about this. I believe he did. I know he definitely dodged that question on direct, but I know that it was also like he sort of had free reign of the place. But having said that, this shit wasn't in the evidence locker. Well, at least some of it, right? The car and the bag with the Solo cups was in the lolly port, which he did have access to because that was just an entrance. So we know at the very least he had access to that shit. And also, I was going to say something about the shoes. So I think the shoes is going to be a big deal because here's why. I've heard other people, like experts, when it comes to, well, actually, a good example is Stephen Smith, related to Murdoch, right? I've heard like person after person who's like an expert in terms of like the way car accidents, like when they're doing like cause of death, but they're people who like specialize in that shit. They've said that every single time the shoes come off. Doesn't matter how tightly they're tied. If they and I don't quite understand how or why this works. It's just what they say, and they're the experts. They've all said that both shoes come off the feet, no matter what the shoes are, when in every single like car accident they've ever seen. With a pedestrian, right? And so I wonder, like, that's why the one shoe off thing is being weird. I was thinking about this the other day of how, like, if there was some funny business going on, you know, I wonder if they took off a shoe because they're trying to make it look like there was a car accident. However, it is odd that they didn't take off both shoes. It's odd no matter what that only one shoe was off his foot, right? Like that's just odd. That doesn't really make, yeah, Lolliport, that's it. You can thank DSN for that. That was his idea. So I've just been calling it that from now on. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I would imagine that the defense is going to bring in experts regarding that issue. The prosecution probably not, because again, you know, they don't like evidence. And let's just refresh our memories with what Lolly says about that specifically.
There's no evidence of anything in this case.
So, so yeah, I would imagine just like with most stuff, it's going to come from the defense bringing in somebody to talk about the shoe thing.
Yes.
Can you describe what those are and who, if anyone, has access to those evidence storage areas?
Oh, here we go.
Within our office, we have 2 troopers that are designated as evidence officers. Those individuals have access to the secure rooms designated strictly for evidence storage. Those rooms are inventoried and kept under not just lock and key, but also digital access
again,
control
so
and alarm systems.
Anything in the Lolliport doesn't matter.
They are the only ones that have access to those facilities, in addition to our unit commander. But I'll tell you that our unit commander does not access that room without the evidence officers. I myself, even as a supervisor, do not have access to that room.
You don't have access to that evidence room, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what he just said, Lolly.
Is he one of those evidence officers? Does he have access to that room?
He does not.
As far as at the time in January of 2022, who were the troopers within your office who did have access to that?
In January 2022, that would be Trooper Jeff Kakowski and Trooper David DeChico.
And that would be in addition to Lieutenant Tully, is that correct?
No,
Detective Lieutenant Tully, I believe.
that was Officer Good, and he testified way back in the beginning of the trial, so I kind of forgot that he testified, but I remembered when Fender reminded me, because she's been catching up, so she saw it way more recently than we did. When she reminded me about what he testified to, I remembered it. But however, when he testified, he didn't talk about the surveillance camera footage being missing. I don't know if maybe the foundation wasn't laid, but he was the one who talked about using the leaf blower.
Has access to it, but I
And
cannot
was what
speak to
that was
that.
his
I
testimony.
just believe that he does as a unit commander to facilitate any next assignment.
Now, with reference to any items that you were physically present for that were taken into custody or taken into
Okay.
evidence, including that clothing from the hospital on
All
January
right, I'm going
29th,
to go
and any other
forward
items throughout the
because
course of this investigation,
I want to see if we're going to
when they
we're going
were,
to get to cross because
taped
Lolly's
and sealed,
horrifying.
what were each of those?
Oh, what's he
what
doing
happened?
here? Hold on, let's see this.
So, okay. All right, so you've received photos of all of this, right?
I assume what's in the bag is what's been photographed, but until I see it, I won't know.
All right, so let's go ahead and open it.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Oh, yay. Remember what a shit show this was in Murdoch? Oh, it was amazing. With every, like, Metters just handling everything on gloves, and they had the debris all over the clerk of court's desk or court reporter's desk. Oh, such a disaster. But the chain of custody was flawless, but just the way they were opening this shit in court was so funny. There's the shirt. Wow. I'm kind of surprised we're seeing this because it is actual evidence. Yeah, this is weird.
So Lally, why don't you come take the bag?
But yeah, Higgins was in charge.
Yes.
And remember, that had been on the floor of
Put
the
that back
ambulance
in the
and the
bag.
hospital room. Talk about places where DNA is everywhere, right? Blood and whatever the fuck. Debris. What a mess. Well, at least you put gloves on. And shit.
Can I approach you on it?
Yes.
Do you mean in Murdoch, Fender?
Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Says it's a one orange T-shirt.
Right.
Your Honor, with court's permission, if the witness could remove that
I'm
item,
wondering
place
if the
it to
vomit
Yes.
was because he was really drunk. Because we haven't heard, we haven't heard obviously from any medical exam. We don't know. But that's just one thought, right? I mean, his hypothermia is not going to cause vomit. I don't think a car accident's going to cause. Yeah, they were throwing things. Yeah. He was, Metters was like pulling out the shoes and he was like, what's all this? And she's like, oh, it's grass. And so he's like just tapping it into the garbage can. Oh, it's so funny. Okay, well, they're just gonna, okay, was not, we want to hear information and not just, I mean, you know, okay, that was not nearly as informative as I was maybe hoping. We just,
Yes, I'm going to look.
wait, I want to see the
Thank
shoe,
you.
actually, hold on. Or the shoe, because they never found the second one, right? Well, they all said that Karen had a clear liquid in her glass, but you know, in normal worlds, they would get the receipts from the bartender,
Sergeant.
right? To show
You
it.
are unmuted.
Or they would look at the surveillance camera, which they had access to all night, but for some reason we only see people leaving. There's that, plus the wrestling. Oh, I have shoes similar to that, actually.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Thank you.
Those are nice shoes. Those are the Nike, what are they, free foam or whatever?
Yes, I'm going to look. Thank you.
May I approach one at a time?
I agree, Candace. It is sad. It is sad. Yeah. The shoes look brand new too. It was just one.
I understand.
So it was just the one shoe. So they don't ever found. Wait. So
Yes.
does that answer my question? Did they never find the other shoe? Because talk about things that would be okay. Sorry, hold on. Let's back up. Again, we already were talking about it's odd because they found the larger pieces of, or sorry, they found the smaller pieces of Taillight, but they didn't find the bigger pieces until later and all that. That's one thing. But a shoe? A shoe? A shoe? Let's keep in mind they didn't search the house. And I wonder if this shoe thing is perhaps where, if I'm imagining the defense going over this evidence for the first time, right? As discovery is coming in. And I wonder at what point they were wondering about what happened in the house. And this could be a thing, right? Depending on what order they received things. The one shoe being missing and never found, and then learning the house was never searched that's yeah. And remember, who was it? Mr. O'Hara, I believe. Yeah, the guy who was first yesterday. I keep saying yesterday. I guess it was Monday, right? Anyway, that guy, he testified that they went back and like looked for the shoe and never found, or was that today? It's all blurring together, guys, because I've got live trial and then I've got videos that I'm editing from the previous day and then recaps from the previous week. It's all blurred. But somebody, at least one person, I can't remember if it was fucking today or not, but testified that they went back and looked for the shoe and couldn't find it. And they asked the hospital about the shoe and couldn't find it. Was that the girl? I don't remember. But yes. So the only explanation is that that shoe was either at the bar or at the house and was inside the house, but they never searched the house. Yeah, maybe it was Fender. Again, today I've been hearing testimony from week 5, beginning of the week 6, which was actually 2 days ago, but I keep thinking it's yesterday, and then today. So it's all, yes, but you're right. That was one of the signs. And I feel like Lieutenant O'Hara maybe also did mention that because he was in charge of the crime scene from the Massachusetts state. He might have said so also, but yes, we did hear that today. So, there's not a lot of explanations for where that shoe could be. And I'm just thinking out loud here as I'm thinking it through with y'all, but potentially if there would there be some reason, right? Would there be some reason why they would, again, if they were trying to stage this, right? Anybody who might have hit him and stage it to look like a car accident or whatever. Or even if it was some sort, if in other words, okay, let's start here. If he was hit by a car and he had both shoes on, both shoes would have been found, right? From everything I've heard from all the experts about the car stuff, because we heard a lot about that with Stephen Smith, it wouldn't happen that just one would come off. Now, if you only had one on and the other one was missing, maybe, but where's the other shoe? So what I'm wondering is, did something else happen to that shoe? Like maybe involved with a dog bite? Maybe something else that would show, like there must be some reason why that other shoe was not on him and was not found at the crime scene or anywhere. Like that's wild. Right. I know. That's right. I know. That's part of why it does get so confusing too, right? But we did have a lot of witnesses that day. So it was just a weird day because there were like, 8 witnesses maybe or something? But of course we didn't hear from 2 of them. So
Yes, it's a bag containing a
And this is witness 55,
Blue
by the
jeans,
way.
black belt, and plaid boxer shorts.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may the witness remove just the jeans and the belt from the back?
Yes.
Witness 55 here. I should number it on my thing. Number it on my thing. Number it on my thing. Here's his pants. Okay. All right, let's go forward a little more. Okay, they're gonna take a break. All right, so now what? Is it lunch? Oh shit, y'all, there's the belt. So wasn't there something? I've heard a lot of people talking about this belt, and I feel like it's people who were following this before the trial started, because we've not heard much about that I can recall. Again, it's been a long trial about the belt. Now, people keep saying, what about the belt? Like, was the belt, so does anybody remember or no? Was the belt found at the scene but not on him? Because everybody, I don't know, what was the deal with the belt? Does anybody know? He didn't have a belt. Okay, so that's okay. Right now they have the belt. So this is going to be interesting, isn't it? Really interesting, because okay, let's see. It looks like they're about to go take a break, but let's see if there's anything else.
Commonwealth seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
Okay.
Belt.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. So are you not displaying the third item, but it's going into evidence? Or is it just the jeans and the belt going into evidence?
The jeans and the belt into evidence, Your Honor, with the court's permission.
So we can mark the bag and we'll remove the third item during a break. Thank you. All right, so Sergeant, you'll be with us this afternoon. Why don't we take our lunch and recess? It's only going to be about a half an hour.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, so folks, we'll see you back here. Let's say no later than 1:40, okay?
All right, Yuriy.
All right, so wait, hold on. How far back are we? Let's see how much time we have left. I should have thought of that before. Let me see what she says. What time they're coming back.
You are muted.
Hold on. I should have listened to that better.
So we can mark the bag and we'll remove the third item
Because I'm in the same
during
time
a
zone,
break.
so-
Thank you. All right, so Sergeant, you'll be with us this afternoon. Why don't we take our lunch and recess? It's only going to be
Right.
about a half an hour.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Half an
So
hour
folks,
for
we'll
lunch.
see you back here. Let's say no later than 1:40, okay?
All right.
Okay, we're only 10 minutes behind. Huh. So 1:40, so that's 20 minutes from now. Wow, that's short lunch. Okay, so this belt. So, damn it. I hate that they stopped there because I really want to know more about the belt. We've not heard any testimony about Karen or any of the women taking the belt off, right? I don't think that happened. We also know the house wasn't searched. So if he didn't have a belt on and they found a belt at the crime scene somewhere, what the fuck? What the fuck? Ketchup on cross. Wait, what do you mean? And we're live right now. They're at lunch. I don't know that they'll get to cross. Oh, I see what you're saying. Ketchup on cross later today. I don't know. I mean, I guess they could get to cross. So he's not been on the stand for very long, though. That's the thing. He's not been on the stand for very long, right? Let's see. How long had he been on? So, like, say 20 minutes. And then Yeah, I mean, he'd only been on the stand for like 40 minutes. I don't know. I don't know. Considering how long some of these other folks, like the blonde, you know, I don't want to say lady, the witness from the with the puzzle, like, I mean, she was on direct for hours, I think. I don't know. I'm wondering if it's because, you know, they stopped court at like 4 o'clock. So I'm wondering if this direct will go through the end of the day, or maybe it'll be one of those things where they start cross, but they get like a couple questions in. Oh, the super young one. I see what you're saying. Okay, we can watch some of that. We can watch some of that for sure. That's a good idea. Yes. The super young lady. Good idea. Yeah, good thinking. Thank you, Heather. What was her name? Did we even get her name?
So the rest of the items were not used for physical match examination due to size and condition.
So as you sit here, none of the items on the bumper were deemed to match the cup, correct?
Correct.
All right. So you did end up analyzing one of the items on the bumper, item E as an echo, and you analyzed that against the single piece of glass found at the scene in 7-14, correct?
Correct.
And you used both, well, you used a variety, it sounds like, of analyses, including microscopy, UV light, the glass refractive index, GRIM process, correct?
That's correct.
You also used the FTIR, is that right? Infrared spectrometry?
Yeah, it's supposed to be
That's
FL.
incorrect.
Okay, you did
FL?
not use FTIR in this analysis.
I did not.
Okay, but in the analysis that you did use, you found that there was a match between item E on the bumper and the single piece of glass in 714, correct?
They were found to be consistent. They are found to be consistent in physical and instrumental properties.
Okay, so importantly, you also compared the single piece of glass in our sort of visual.
Oh, right,
column
Christina
for
Hanley, okay.
714, that single piece of glass to the cup. We found that it didn't match, correct?
Correct.
All right. So lastly, you tested the single piece of glass found in the fourth column, 714, against the 9 pieces of glass found in 712, A, B, C, D, E, F, I, K, and L, correct?
There we go. There we go. Woohoo! I'm gonna do the numbers these days.
I did compare item
Yeah, I think
714
this is what you meant, right,
to
Pender?
item 3-2 and the 9 pieces in item 7-12.
So another way to put that would be you analyze column 4 against column 3 now.
Who's Jay
correct?
Jackson? He's talking.
I examined them for a possible physical match.
And they did not match, correct?
Wait, let me edit this to make it better. Who's Jay?
There was no physical match to item 714.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach briefly?
Okay.
But this is Jackson talking.
Want to show Mr. Lally what you have?
Sure.
That's him.
I'm looking for the one that was already labeled. I don't have it. May I approach
Oh!
the court magistrate and ask if he's got?
Oh, you were saying yes to my other question. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Gotcha. Right.
No,
yes.
I do.
Gotcha.
May I borrow that from the court? Thank you.
It gets confusing because people use these
Look at that
letters
document.
as initials so oftentimes.
Just glance it over for a second. and let me know when you've had an opportunity to study that.
Okay.
You've taken a look at that single page document.
Yes.
Does that appear to accurately reflect in sort of a visual manner what you just testified to about your analysis of each of these pieces, irrespective of the text on the item, just the analysis of the items specified in that document?
I'm not quite sure what. I've never seen this before. I'm not quite sure what.
That's interesting.
I think you have to move along, Mr. Jackson.
In and of itself, that's interesting, right? Because evidence comes from the prosecution. And they've not shown her something that is related directly to the evidence that she tested. So that's crazy.
For all the reasons we talked about at sidebar.
I understand.
Interesting.
My question is a relatively simple one. Is this and if you don't understand something on the document, just say so.
She said she hasn't
Is
seen it.
this
Here, I'll
a
rewind it.
visual-
Here. They've not.
I'm not quite sure what.
Wow.
I've never seen this before. I'm not quite sure what.
I think this is one of those things where he's not. The goal is not to make her like she's like the other person, right? Where it was like they just did what they tested what they were handed, and like if this is photographs or something of the items she tested, that should be under her control. And she's like, imagine if you're her and you're being handed this and you're like, I haven't seen this. Like, how is that possible? That would be frightening, right? Like, in other words, somebody else, whatever's on that, we don't know what's on that, right? But like, she didn't sign off on that. So the point of this is that somebody else, like, here's a credible witness, but then somebody else potentially is doing shit without her approval. And like, we don't know what's on that page. So I don't think the goal here is to make her out to look like she did something wrong. It's more like, I think that's why he handed it to her, because he would know she hadn't seen it. And that's the point, right? Because prosecution shouldn't be keeping evidence away from them, like when they're testifying about it. But we've seen that several times where things come up on cross and they're like, yeah, we actually haven't seen it. The prosecution didn't show them. That's not good. That's very shady.
I think you have to move along, Mr. Jackson,
Good
for
point.
all the reasons we talked about at sidebar.
I understand. My question is,
And so
a
it's
relatively
different.
simple
It's
one.
different because she wasn't like, I don't remember, I don't refresh, I don't recollect. She's like, I've never seen this before. That's very different.
Is this and if you don't understand something on the document, just say so. Is this a visual representation, an accurate visual representation of what you just testified to in terms of what matched and what didn't match? Where the green matches, the circle with the red through it doesn't match.
I would need to go through my conclusion and compare to confirm.
Fair enough. It is accurate to say, we'll use a cheat sheet for a second. It is accurate to say that the cup was not found to match any items that were found on the bumper. That's correct. Correct?
There you go.
That is correct.
Wow.
Also, it's fair to say
That's a big deal
that
because
the piece
I forgot to mention this the other day, that everything we'd heard, now I don't remember if this is I feel like this was in the opening statements, but if it wasn't, this was in maybe a tiny bit of comments I've heard from people saying what they think the state's theory is. Because again, I've not done any research, but there was talk of it seemed like what the defense was going to the state was going to hope to show was that there was glass and the hair together, like embedded in the bumper, right? And I forgot to mention this the other day, I guess I didn't forget because I pointed it out that the piece of glass, which was actually plastic, was resting on the bumper, and that was weird because how the hell would it still be there? But nonetheless, there was nothing embedded in the bumper, glass or plastic, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that the pieces of the drinking glass that they did find were not embedded. So I don't know how the hell the state thinks that they're gonna. I guess that's why they haven't offered a theory, right? Like, again, I'm like, I feel like there's been rumblings of this, but like it's not been laid out clearly. And I mean, there's no way for it to work.
Recovered under 714.
Do you want me to rewind it, Fender? Like it seemed like there was the direction that I had the impression that the state was going to go was like, there's really no evidence against Karen Reed, right? But like the stuff that it seemed like they were going to say was like there was glass and embedded in her car bumper, and they also found that hair. Which did they even identify whose hair that was? No, they didn't identify whose hair it was. They only said it was human. And so I guess that's why they kept saying like, oh, she's got the glass and shit at the bar. And John O'Keefe left with the glass, right? I mean, it sounds a lot to me like it's like trying to build a theory based on things that happened and find an explanation. So anyway, because again, if they did what normal people do when they start an investigation and based off the crime scene was there was no glass embedded in the bumper. The crime scene, well, we all know what it says, right? Like the crime scene does not point to anything that the state apparently is going to be offering as a theory if they do offer a theory. And certainly nothing that connects Karen to it, except that this is her car, but there's nothing that shows the car did anything wrong. So, but that was but there was nothing embedded in the bumper. But the thought was like, it seemed like they were going to offer that there was glass. I mean, that's what I'd heard. And I feel like it might've been an opening statement, but, and then again, so then it's like, well, here's the drinking glass, right? So this is like a part of but like, it wasn't, it's like as if a 4-year-old was trying to stage a crime scene or something, but like, yeah, I'll rewind to the question for you, Fender. Yeah, that's right.
I'm not quite sure what. I've never seen this before. I'm not quite sure what.
I think you have to move along, Mr. Jackson, for all the reasons we talked about at sidebar.
I understand. My question is a relatively simple one. Is this and if you don't understand something on the document, just say so. Is this a visual representation, an accurate visual representation of what you just testified to in terms of what matched and what didn't match? With the green matches, the circle with the red through it doesn't match.
I would need to go through my conclusion and compare to confirm.
Fair enough. It is accurate to say, use a cheat sheet for a second. It is accurate to say that the cup was not found to match any items that were found on the bumper. That's correct, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Also, it's fair to say that the piece recovered under 714, the single piece of glass recovered under 714, does not match either the cup.
Yeah, good point.
Nor does that piece match any of the 9 pieces in 712, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at your notes if that's easier for you. We just want the right answer, Mr. Jackson, right?
Of course.
So take your time with your notes if that's easier for you.
So I'm sorry, can you just repeat the last question that you asked for?
The single piece of glass under 714 neither matches the cup, nor does it match any of the 9 pieces found in 712. In other words, it stands alone.
Wow.
So that's correct. So
Okay.
714, there was no physical match between 714 and 3-2 or any of the pieces in 7-12.
Thank you for that. And then my final question is,
Hmm.
the only piece of material, glass material, that was recovered from the bumper, item E, the only thing that any piece on that bumper matched was the single piece of glass found in 714. Correct?
So piece E from item 3-3 was the piece that I examined microscopically and instrumentally. It was found to be consistent in physical and instrumental properties with 7-14.
And that's the only piece of material on that bumper in that section. In other words, in 3-3, it matched anything else in your analysis. The piece that was found singularly under 714, correct? The only match.
Yes, it was found to be consistent.
Thanks. That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Vallier?
Briefly, Your Honor.
It would be really nice if at some point, maybe the defense will do this, when they go back and look at these exhibits with all the different fucking shit, you know, shards of glass, plastic, whatever, and label it with like an arrow pointing, because it's like I mean, maybe the prosecution, you know, of course, right, the state, the Commonwealth, it works to their benefit to not clarify it, right? But it's like you're seeing an image and you don't know what you're looking at, and it goes back and forth because one person called it glass and then another person calls it plastic, and then they were using the word apparent. It's like the whole thing is like, what's the word? Subterfuge? Is that the word? Like smoke and mirrors? Like they don't want you to know what it really is. And then when they tell you what it is, you're not seeing it, right? I mean, if I was on the jury, I would be like, why the hell can we not see the item with what it is so we can know? Like, you know what I mean?
Within item 7-12,
Right.
there were 9 pieces of glass and 5
I
pieces
know.
of plastic, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the comparison analysis that you're conducting is concerned, why is it, as far as the pieces of plastic are concerned, why is that not part of the comparative analysis?
I did not examine the plastic pieces for physical match because there were no other plastic pieces for comparison for physical match. So I examined the glass pieces for possible physical match.
What are some of the differences between, from an elemental standpoint, as far as
Yeah.
plastic versus glass?
This should have been brought out
Well,
at the get-go, right? This
plastic is
this should have been the first fucking question.
it's
she
a
asked, correct.
it's a type of polymer.
This is
A different
my
type of
question we
analysis
have
would
to find
be
the whole time, was this.
conducted if I was examining plastic versus
I can't
glass.
believe he hadn't asked her this yet.
Something like a plastic,
Yeah.
something that we refer to as anisotropic, or glass is isotropic.
Mhm.
So they are different types of material.
Now, as far as characteristically speaking, from plastic and or glass, what are some of the commonalities of those items as they're found in general?
Objection.
Beyond the scope?
Yes.
Sustained.
Now, again, from the
Yeah.
drinking glass that was recovered on scene, that was a match for 6 of the pieces of glass that were found on the roadway or on the ground at 34 Fairview Road.
Yeah.
I believe it was 6. I just would have to confirm in my
Go ahead
report.
and you can go ahead and look at your notes.
Yes, it was 6 pieces from 7-12.
And then it was piece E from item 3-3 from the bumper of the defendant's vehicle that was found to be consistent with clear glass that was found on the ground at 34 Fairview Road, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Nothing further.
Anything?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Hanley. You are all
So,
set.
let's do this. Let's see if they're back. It's 1:41, so they're not back yet, but they should be back any second. So let me get my correct banner ready. There we go. I feel like they'll be back any second. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and reiterate. So for anyone who didn't see it, I had a video I posted this morning covering the 74 counts against Becky Hill. We're doing a live stream tonight. I believe I have it scheduled for 8 o'clock with recapping of week 5, quote unquote, which is again is just the one day, but minus Brian Higgins' testimony. But however, there were like a slew of other witnesses, even without Brian Higgins and even without the 2 kids. So we'll cover, I think there's like 5 or 6. So we'll cover all of them tonight. And we're also going to go over the first document court filing to come out with Chad Daybell after his verdict and sentencing. And I haven't checked yet today. There might be something additional. I'll check and make sure there's not anything else new. We're going to go over that, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff. And I'm sure we'll be chatting about some of the goings on from these past couple days. Tomorrow is a half day in court, and there's no court Friday. But I'm going to be tomorrow. I would imagine will definitely be Trooper Bukhenik on cross for sure, right? Tomorrow. Maybe they'll get lucky and get to start him today, but I would imagine he could. I mean, between cross and redirect, he might finish out the day tomorrow since it's a half day. So I'm going to be able to cover that as well. And I'll probably try to start streaming around 10 o'clock or so we have room to fast forward through the sidebars and the breaks and whatnot. But we'll just kind of see how it's going. So then we'll have that. And then on Friday, I have it scheduled for the first part of week 6 week recap. So that'll be what we heard on Monday, probably. I'm still working on that. I don't know quite how many witnesses we'll get in, but that will be Friday. So also in the near future, I plan to go over the PCA, the probable cause affidavit in Idaho with BK, and review that because we've got some new testimony that was very relevant that came out in that last hearing that we covered. For anyone who didn't watch that, highly recommend it. It should be the most recent video in the Idaho playlist at the very top. But that we heard from Brett Payne, who was the law enforcement officer who wrote the affidavit. I don't remember his level, rank, whatever, but he wrote the affidavit. So he was there. And then they also had this really killer expert witness. The defense had an expert witness that was one of the most experts of all time when it comes to cell towers. I was like blown away. And it was also really cool. It was his first time ever testifying in Idaho or for the defense in any case ever. And he's been an expert witness like over 100 times, but he's always testified for the prosecution. And we learned a lot from him. And there was some really interesting argument where we got some snippets of kind of what we might see happening. We learned a lot about what the defense is missing and kind of where some of the issues are. It was very eye-opening, I will say. And of course, as with everything, I have detailed timestamps. I don't have timestamps yet for the Becky Hill video from this morning, but there's not really a whole lot there to timestamp. But I will have those done, but there will be a couple things, but it's not, it's the document, but yeah. So, okay, maybe what I'll do while we're waiting for them is maybe I will go back to all the small things and see if I can try to come up with some lyrics for that. Or I could do the sound of Lolly. God damn it. Objection to the sound of Lolly. I thought I had, the chat was, hold on, let me pull up the chat. I thought I had that open. Okay. Yeah. Oh, really? Nothing on Coburger? That's interesting. Wow. Huh. Well, you're welcome to keep asking questions. I mean, BK is a long ways away from trial, right? So, and I've only been covering court documents. I've not done anything. I plan to do it. If you want to jump in, I have a PowerPoint presentation that I've been working on that actually goes through, it's called Unraveling in 14 Minutes. That actually goes through my thoughts on kind of what happened during the commission of the crime. But I haven't done that yet. I haven't finished it. So far it's just been court documents hearing. But and Daybell, I've not done any coverage on Daybell at all. I was just gonna briefly mention the one document tonight, which that came out, but I've not done. I plan to do a deep dive on that trial, Murdoch style, where it goes. It's the trial gavel to gavel, but with all of the context and all the backstory. But yeah, I've not done any coverage with Chad Daybell. It's just going to be referencing that one document, just because nobody else is talking about it yet, and I know everybody's been watching it. So, a psychic, kind of. Wait, are you talking? Oh, you're talking about Idaho, BK, right? They're both Idaho. So BK. So yeah, college students. The psychic is involved only in when it comes to that would be like an adjacent case. Like that's the psychic is not involved with the criminal trial at all. Has nothing to do with it. That's like there's a civil suit going on with a psychic who said that a college professor at University of Idaho was the one who did the murders, and it's obviously completely made up false. And this is they're defending themselves pro se, and that's just a whole other. That's separate. That's completely separate from the criminal trial. The criminal trial, there's a suspect in custody or whatever, and it is a death penalty case, just like with Chad Daybell. But here's what's so interesting about the Koberger. Well, okay, from a legal perspective, he's got a public defender, and again, it's death penalty. He's got, for anyone who missed it, in my opinion, from what I can think of for just off the top of my head, but like if I say my top 4 favorite defense attorneys of all time that I think are the best that I've seen, it would be Mark Eiglarsh, Alan Jackson, David Yannetti, and Ann Taylor. And Ann Taylor is the lead attorney, the public defender for BK. And she's a force. She's like Joan of Arc, or like, I don't know. I think she's freaking amazing. She's so good. And I've talked at great lengths about her, so I'm not going to go on and on, because I could go on and on, but I've already done it several times. But you know, I end up making commentary, I feel like, about her with whether it's a BK video or something else, because she's amazing. She really is amazing. And she is the epitome. Like, it gives me goosebumps just to think about that, what she's doing as a public defender, and how hard a job that is to have compassion and all the rest, when she probably gets so much hate. Anyway. So one of the reasons why I love covering the hearings and started doing that is because I love getting to watch her. And also the documents. There's a lot of strategy involved. So from a legal perspective, it's not even really about the murders at this point. It's all the legal pretrial, right? And there's more pretrial motions. Fender, there's like probably hundreds so far in this case. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy how many court filings there have been, how many hearings. It's really unheard of and unprecedented. So there's like so much activity. So like, that's why it's really interesting to follow pre-trial for this one, because there is just so much going on. And like right out the get-go, that was his public defender. And there's been from day one, really incredible like strategy going on and really interesting stuff. I've not talked anything about the psychic. EDB is covering the stuff with the psychic. I mean, it's not, it's really just a shame but that's not the criminal case. And again, we've not gotten to Chad Daybell yet, but we probably will do the deep dive on him, because I've made the most epic thumbnail of all time. So right now it's just Karen Reed, Murdoch stuff when that comes out, and BK, Brian Koberger. So, and Gloria Satterfield, but I put that on pause because of this trial. So, all right.
Thank you. Maybe see the photographing session.
Yes. Yes. Even from just what's public on the website. If you join us for the next BK thing,
all right.
Every time I do BK coverage, I try to show y'all where the documents are and show you just how long it takes to scroll, because it's crazy. I've done that in previous videos, but so you could definitely see that on other ones. But at this point, it's just going to be, it's always longer. So whenever I do the next video on BK, like I'll do that again, and you will see. And you can actually see, because he's right above Chad Daybell, also death penalty case, right? So you can actually see, even with another high profile death penalty case that's already finished trial, you can actually see when I scroll with my mouse thing, like how many documents there are. It's crazy. It's really unprecedented. And there's been so many hearings also. It's really insane.
Mr. Lally.
May we approach this briefly?
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and just again, tomorrow we'll be doing the half day here. And again, it should be this trooper on cross is what I would imagine. I would imagine like maybe they'll start cross today and then tomorrow might be cross, redirect. I don't know that they'll get into another witness. It depends on who it is. It's just hard to say because there's been times where it seemed like they were going to finish up and they didn't, and then vice versa. Like I remember thinking the rest of the stuff with Higgins from when it carried over to the next week, I remember thinking Higgins was going to be on the stand for like another several hours and it was like 30 minutes. So it's really, really, oh, right. Got you, Fender. Okay. Yes. Week 5 recap. Got you. Okay. Yes, indeed. Yes. So that's in like 6 or 7 hours or something like that. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, so that was really surprised me when Brian Higgins was like, yeah, when he came back that following week 6, right? Week 5. It's all confusing. Just the one day. But he was on the stand for like 30 or 40 minutes, finishing cross with redirect, recross, and then he was done. I was expecting like another couple hours. So it's really hard to predict. This trial is just bizarre in every way. Let me speed up this silence. I don't have my guitar handy when I need it, man. Do you think they're going to call Proctor, the state, Commonwealth? Well, we don't have that much room, but okay, here we go. Room for Zoom. All right. He's got Kleenex. Huh. I don't feel like that Kleenex box has always been there. Have you guys noticed that? The Kleenex box?
Okay,
I have not
go
noticed
ahead, Mr.
that.
Lally.
Yes, thank you.
Let me move them so you guys can.
Sergeant Buchanan, those items as far as the clothing items.
This Kleenex box? Well, let me back it up a little bit where you can see better. Not that far. Anyway, the Kleenex box, let me play it a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, here. I have not noticed that with any other witness. It doesn't mean it hasn't been there because I'm very non-observant with certain things. Have you guys noticed it though? Because that is interesting. I'm sure there is somebody who watches this with us who is one of those people who would notice, who would know for sure, like 100%. They would notice that if it hadn't been there. But I feel like I haven't seen it. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've only edited like thousands of hours of this freaking trial so far, and I feel like I've never seen it. So that's
Okay, you
interesting.
can go ahead, Mr. Lally.
Getting emotional? Or does he have allergies? Could be allergies.
Those items as far as the clothing
Could be
items
allergies.
that you displayed for the jury just prior to the recess, those were the same clothing
Right?
items that you
Yes.
recovered from.
I was going to say DSN, but Fender beat me to it. Yes, DSN. DSN, shout out to you whenever you watch this on Replay Crew because DSN will know. That's exactly right. He's so smart at DSN.
The hospital room of the Good Samaritan.
You're having a good day,
on
DSN.
January 29th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you had mentioned earlier in your testimony that those
Right.
items had been placed into one bag initially. What, if anything, happened with those items as far as their keeping or their bagging once you got back to
They're
the
keeping or
office
they're bagging, Molly?
where the evidence room?
Due to the condition of those items after they arrived at the office, the items were laid out on butcher's paper that we utilize for evidence viewing and
Butcher's paper is correct, at least.
allowed to dry naturally
I know, me neither.
because they
Fender.
were soaking wet.
And as far as when they were done with that sort of drying process, how were they packaged from there?
They were packaged in the bags, sealed up, and stored for transport and processing.
And so those would be bags individual for each clothing item, is that correct?
Each item the way that it was packaged, the pants with the belt and the boxers, and then so on and so forth with the sweatshirt and sneakers.
And we'll get to this a little bit more in a moment, but at some point there were pieces of plastic, red and clear plastic, that were recovered by you and other troopers from Fairview Road, is that correct?
That's correct.
At any point in time, were pieces of clear and red plastic that were recovered from 34 Fairview Road ever placed inside the same evidence bag as any piece of clothing that you recovered?
No, absolutely not.
Now,
Ask him about the solo cups before he
with
laughs
reference,
too much.
To the hospital of Good Samaritan, in addition to yourself and Trooper Proctor, were there other members of the state police or the units of the state police that arrived at the hospital at some point?
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Mello came to the hospital to document the victim and the clothing.
Lieutenant
And
Mello?
he's assigned to the state police
I
crime
know,
scene services
right?
section.
Does he not know about the
As
solo
far
cups?
as
No, he
the
has
crime
to.
scene services section, or CSSS, what, if any, role do they have with relation to your investigation in this case, or your investigations in general as far as documentation is concerned?
Crime scene services section assists us in documenting scenes through video and photographs.
I don't know.
They also assist
How is-
in collecting latent prints, fingerprints. They assist in collecting impressions, like foot impressions in mud or soil, and those types of missions.
Now, there are a number of different troopers that are assigned to that.
Types of
particular
what?
unit.
Meshes? What?
That's correct.
What is
And
happening?
as far as over the course of this
God.
investigation, how many occasions approximately were there that a member of the crime scene services section responded to memorialize or photograph different scenes or different areas throughout the course of your investigation in this case?
Just off the top of my head, there would be 4, 5, maybe 6 instances where a trooper or sergeant from crime scene services responded to the scene to assist us in this investigation.
Now, at any point in time over the course of the investigation,
I
when
know.
the crime scene services troopers responded to document anything, was it ever the same trooper more than once?
No, it was not.
And so with regard to January 29th, back at the Good Samaritan Hospital,
I have no idea.
your Sergeant Mello arrived to.
I have not heard that name
photograph
before.
Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
Sergeant Mello?
And your may approach the witness.
Yes.
Now we've listened to all the direct so far. He's not asked him the questions he's asked everybody else. Did you know John O'Keefe? Were you friends
Mr.
with him?
Lally, do you want me to give my instruction now or in a few minutes?
Just about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, are these pictures? Finally?
And so Sergeant Bukhenik
Okay.
just placed 3 photographs.
Let me say, the jury, to my knowledge, hasn't seen like any freaking pictures except for the arm, which is insane because usually that's like the first thing. But it looks like we're about to get pictures.
For you, do you recognize?
Now, I don't know.
those 3
Let's
photographs?
see what happens. They
I
show
do.
up.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Wow.
That is Mr. John O'Keefe.
And what's contained within those photographs is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you saw of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the Good Samaritan Hospital on January 29th.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, may I approach again?
Yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth seeks to introduce in the mid.
Interesting. So
All
we're
right.
gonna see-
So there's no objection, right?
Interesting.
All right. So, folks, the
Okay.
Commonwealth is introducing into evidence through this witness certain photographs that are not pleasant and may
wow.
be considered graphic photos. Sometimes evidence is presented
Yeah, they've not.
that creates an emotional reaction.
It's insane that they've not seen this before. They've only seen the arm with scratches, and that was presented through cross-examination by the defense
in
earlier on.
jurors. For example, it's natural and understandable to feel sympathy and empathy when you hear about a person who was injured in some serious way or suffered in some way
I've
or
never
who has
heard anything
passed
like this
away.
before, though.
But as jurors, you've taken an oath to follow the law, and I instruct you that you must separate any emotional reaction
I've never.
on your part from
heard
the
this
informational value and weight of the evidence.
I've,
You must not
this
be
is insane.
influenced in any way
What is
by the
happening?
nature of some of the testimony, and you must find the facts in this case based only on the evidence. You can't find facts or base your decision on sympathy, anger, passion, or prejudice or pity for or against either side in this case. Rather, your verdict must be based solely on the evidence and my instructions on the law.
Huh.
All right, with that, Mr. Lally, those photos will be in evidence.
What usually happens is they say something like, these are going to be graphic images, you know, something along those lines. She didn't even say that. This is very weird. I've never heard anything like this. Now, having said that, what she's saying is all true, right? I mean, they should have sympathy. Okay, they shouldn't be told not to have sympathy. I do think that it's true that they have to base their verdict on the instructions that they're given. But like, I've just never heard that's part of their jury instructions. I've never heard it read, or I've never heard anything like this in my life. Yeah, this is really crazy. I want to hear it again because I'm confused. This court.
You've taken an oath to follow the law, and I instruct
go
you
back
that you
to the
must
beginning.
separate any emotion.
3 photographs before you.
Okay.
Do you recognize what's depicted in those 3 photographs?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Yeah, I agree.
That is Mr. John O'Keefe.
And what's contained within
But
those photographs
also,
is that
like, why is the Kleenex box? It's weird because the Kleenex box is up there for him, right? It's like I almost expected her when she first started talking. I almost expected her to say something like he might get emotional, which would be even weirder because like it would mean it was like predicted, and like nobody's gotten really emotional about John O'Keefe yet, except for like Carrie Roberts. But anyway, this is weird.
fair and accurate portrayal of what you saw of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the Good Samaritan Hospital on January 29th.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, may I approach again?
Yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth seeks to introduce and admit.
I mean, and the thing
All
is,
right.
they're law
So
enforcement.
there's no objection, right? All right. So, folks, the Commonwealth is introducing into evidence through this witness certain photographs that are not pleasant and may be
Not
considered
pleasant.
graphic photos. Sometimes evidence is presented that creates an emotional reaction in
weird.
jurors. For example, it's natural and understandable to feel sympathy and empathy when you hear about a person who was injured in some serious way or suffered in some way or who has passed away.
This is so weird. All the things I expected her to say after the first couple words were things like maybe, I'm just, this is a reminder to the gallery to please try to stay, because the gallery is always reminded they can't be overly, emotional, right? They have to try to be stoic so they don't influence the jury, right? They can't yell or react, they have to keep their reactions to a minimum. That was one way I thought it would go. Or the other way I thought it would go, maybe reminding the jurors if they can try to, I guess it's like the jurors are I guess encouraged to do that, but like you can't, obviously you can't force them, but like, or something like, what was the other thing I was thinking with graphic images? I don't know. I can't remember. Like, in other words, there were a bunch of different things I thought she was going to finish that with, but then she didn't finish it. Let me back it up one more time. Like, it just did not go how I thought it was going to go. Weird.
So the Commonwealth is introducing into evidence
Right.
through this witness certain photographs that
Yes.
are not pleasant and may be considered
too.
graphic photos. Sometimes evidence is presented that creates an emotional reaction in jurors. For example, it's natural and understandable to feel sympathy and empathy when you hear about a person who was injured in some serious way
This is
or
just so
suffered
weird.
in some way or who has passed
Not
away.
where, okay.
But as jurors, you've taken
Like the thing about the graphic photos is normal. Like I actually said I was expecting that, although we should have seen these photos way earlier, right? It's what's following it that's weird because anything that could follow the graphic photos, there's a number of different options. Like I said, that would be like normal, right? Like these are gonna be challenging photos. Like if you need to take a break, let us know. That's another thing you'll hear. Or but the way she's following that this is just out of left field. Completely.
an oath to follow the law, and I instruct
I
you that you
can't.
must separate any emotional reaction on your part from
Wow.
the informational value and weight of the evidence. You must not be influenced in any way by the nature of some of the testimony, and you must find the facts in this case based only on the evidence. You
Weird.
can't find facts or base your decision on sympathy, anger, passion, or prejudice or pity.
I mean, we don't even hear this when it's like horrific injuries done to children, right? Or whatever. Like these photos are going to be, as you all know, I've accidentally seen them. They're terrible. They're way worse than what it sounds like. However, they're nothing compared to the stuff that they're not allowed to even show to the public. They're not, like there's way worse, right? And way worse, including done to children and shit like that. Like, and even then, you don't hear this type of instruction. This is just so weird.
Or against either side in this case. Rather, your verdict must be based solely on the evidence and my instructions on the law. All right, with that, Mr. Lally, those photos will be in evidence.
Thank you. Your Honor, with the court's permission, may publish just briefly each of the three respective photographs.
Yes. Thank you.
Weird. It's all weird. It's all very weird.
If I could have photograph 2866. Sergeant, directing your attention to the screen, is that what's displayed on there now has been marked as Exhibit 441. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And using the laser pointer on the desk before you, if you could draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance.
Oh my God, Wally.
What,
What, anything? I'm Wally. I'm Wally. What, anything?
I observed the swelling of the eyelids.
Now we get to see. Yeah, well, paused at a crazy moment. Yeah, I had a feeling we were going to get to see Fender because there was not any type of instruction given in regards. Oh, that's the other thing I was thinking she was going to say. Thank you for reminding me that after she said the thing about the graphic pictures, I thought maybe one of the other potential sentences that would follow is like the court cameras can't show it or whatever. But when we didn't hear that, I mean, again, these are mild in comparison, right? Because oftentimes in the trials that I follow, and I know y'all follow, we don't see it, and the public will never see it. It's sealed, you know. But here it looks like we're going to see
Slight laceration of the nostril and eyelid.
Looks like it.
The blood pooling
I mean,
on the bed, and
this isn't
that depiction of Mr. O'Keefe.
interesting. So maybe not.
Again, Sergeant, you recognize what's up on the screen and is now the mark.
That's a good point, Fender. You might be right. They might be doing that. Yeah. That's what usually happens in trials is they're instructed by the judge. She didn't say it. He was like, don't get emotional and shit, but she didn't say anything about weird.
I observed the lateral, parallel lacerations, abrasions and markings on the skin of Mr. O'Keefe, limited between that point there and that point there, as I described earlier in my testimony.
Remember how much preparation they had to do it, like in Murdoch, for example? But not just, but other trials as well. Like they need a heads up. It's like a big deal. Even in Lori Vallow's trial, it was audio only.
It's the same abrasions to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, just further up on the bicep, tricep, shoulder area.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, interesting. You might be right, though, Fender, that they might just be doing that out of habit and out of being overly cautious, because obviously Judge Bev does not do things typically.
Sergeant, taking you back to January 29th, 2022. After you left the Good Samaritan Hospital, where is it that you went?
Wow. Okay. Well,
We went to 345 Country Hill Drive in Dayton.
And that was the residence of Miss Reed's parents. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, on your way from the Good Samaritan in Brockton to the residence in Dayton, what, if any, communication did either you or Trooper Proctor have with regard to the Dayton police?
yeah.
I advised Trooper Proctor to contact Dayton Police Dispatch.
Yeah, and I apologize for when it swung the camera around. It always does that when it's going to the screen. I was sure it was like, okay, we're going to see it, and I paused it, and then it continued panning over to Karen. I thought it was going to show the screen, so that is very weird. I don't know if maybe they were headed towards the screen and then they thought better of it, or I don't know. Maybe they were planning on going to the screen. I really don't know. I don't think they had any heads up this was coming, because nobody did. Like, this was just, because again, it's like at this point, it's almost like, are they even going to show us any of that? Because they should have done that right off the bat, like every other trial. I don't see how the hell you can't. I haven't heard that. However, I will say I don't see how you can have a murder trial without cause and manner of death. I don't see how that's legally possible. Now, having said that, there's always states do have their varying rules. Maybe Massachusetts has some weird. I can't fathom that. That makes literally no sense. That makes literally no. I don't see how they can even. I just don't. That can't be right. That can't be. That just can't be right. That can't be right. That can't be right.
Batch.
I mean, maybe this is. I mean, thank God the FBI. We have to remember, guys. Like the FBI's involved in investigating this entire thing. I just don't see how.
And advised them that we would be responding to the location, 345 Country Hill Drive.
I mean,
And
again, I've said this a million times. If I was on the jury, I'm done at solo cups. But boy, if in case if there's anyone, maybe the only hope is that was such a long time ago. Maybe the hope is the jury's forgotten. Let's just say they've forgotten about that, or let's say that never even happened. If you're not giving me a cause of death, maybe that's why there's no medical examiner, and that would all make sense, right? Because we know the medical. I'm sorry, but like my squirrely 2 cents on this one is the medical examiner would not testify to anything that would prove the state's theory. It would, I'm sure, it would probably be more in line with whatever the defense is suggesting. But the whole thing is it's not going to show, like, because again, I've seen it on accident. Like, it's not consistent. It's just not. There's just no way. And they're not offering so far any explanation of what they actually even think happened. So I guess that makes sense, because if you bring in a medical examiner, they're going to have to say the cause of death. I mean, it makes sense in that it doesn't make sense. Like this should be happening, but in a way, it's like, you know what? That might be why we haven't heard from the medical examiner if they're not going to give a cause of death. But I still can't wrap my head around that being possible. Okay, thank you, Fender.
Seizing a vehicle. And we were requesting uniformed patrols to assist us in that mission.
I still want to know why he has
Why was
Kleenex.
that request made of the local PD?
We were going into their jurisdiction. There was a blizzard going on. We were considerate of
Y'all,
the circumstance.
they did not offer Carrie Roberts Kleenex. I mean, there's been other people who maybe had a little bit of tears here and there, you know, at certain moments. Like, for example, Brian Higgins talking about his dad and shit. But like, Carrie Roberts was really emotional. They did not offer her Kleenex. This is just weird, man.
And wanted to be courteous to the Reed residents and not just show up without any uniform presence. We have never met the Reed family. They have never met us. And with the clothing that we were wearing, it would be difficult for them to see that we were law enforcement.
And so as you arrive in that
Well, you also
area,
were using your
on
personal
residents
vehicles,
in
which,
Dayton,
whatever.
where did you position yourselves? And
The one police department on the
when
planet
did you arrive
that
in
lives in a
relation to
snowy
the
climate that
construction
has
site?
no preparation for snow, apparently.
We called them while we were still on the highway and gave them an approximate time of arrival. GPS was not accurate due to the conditions at the time on the roadways.
Okay, well, whoa, that's something with the feed. Interesting. I think EDB actually uses the same feed, which is really funny because I didn't know that. I feel like she said something about it yesterday when she was covering from the previous week. And I was like, hey, that's what I've been using this whole time. Yeah, look at that. They cut out. They lose their feed. Okay, I was going to say, though, that I call bullshit on that with the GPS. That's going to be fun to see on Cross. Okay, okay.
From knee high to up to my
it
waist.
Certainly doesn't.
For reference, I'm 6'1", so
This
it was
is
quite
insane.
deep in
This
some
is
locations.
insane.
And as you made your way to the home, what, if anything, did you observe in the driveway?
As we walked up to the driveway in front of the garage, we observed a large.
The other thing is this dude knows better. Remember his resume was ridiculous. And it does make you wonder, again, I keep thinking about this, if you're the defense and you're getting this evidence coming in through discovery and you're seeing what's happening, I could see how, when you get to someone like him with his background saying shit like this, you would be like, there's something else at foot here to get him to say shit like this, right? I mean, it makes sense. Like it's starting to seem more and more plausible. Whether it's accurate, it's starting to seem more and more plausible how what they're suggesting, that there's a cover up that's like a bigger, I mean, I don't know about conspiracy, but at least a cover up. It seems like if you look at the totality of everything from the prosecution's case in chief, It's not hard. It's not. It felt like a stretch initially, but as we go along, it's really. I'm seeing how they got this evidence come and how they would have, like, again. That's why I keep saying, yeah, I could see how they see this and they're like, what the fuck, right? Like, it's not that far of a stretch anymore to me. Happy to see you again, Super Planner Girl. Oh, and I'm sure they did all this, Fender. Again, I haven't watched any of the pretrial stuff, but I know there were a lot of pretrial motions. Now, not nearly as many as BK, because nothing's ever going to be. That's going to have a world record, I think, until the end of time for the pretrial litigation and hearings. But yeah, no, I know there were a lot of hearings. It's just I never watched them, but I always saw that they were happening. This is they're here. This is Trooper Bukhenik, who was the other guy along with Proctor, but he has like the most incredible freaking resume of all time, dude. Like legit, like we were both, Fred and I were like, whoa, like he was in the Marines and God, he did all this other shit. He had a Yankee White clearance, which was security for the president. He was responsible for the security on like the president's airplane and shit. And like, then from there, it just like, that was like early on in his career. And that just got more impressive from there. It was really insane. We were joking that the only thing he wasn't was a Navy SEAL. And then somehow he ended up working for the Massachusetts State Police, which is, he said he was born and raised in Canton, first of all, not from Russia, but Russian name, but born and raised in Canton. Yeah. So this is what I was saying is like, it's really interesting because hearing this testimony from him, like what we've heard so far on direct, some things that are really crazy is like that the Canton Police Department does not have vehicles that can drive in the snow. They only have front wheel drive vehicles. So he had to take his own personal vehicle because it had 4-wheel drive. You can, I'm sure I'll timestamp. I went all rant about that. And how even living in Boone, people would move to Boone and sell their car and get something with at least rear-wheel drive, if not 4-wheel drive. And that was Boone, North Carolina. And then also, what was it? He just testified to something else crazy. Oh yeah, the GPS stops working in the snow. There's been a couple really crazy things, but that's what's weird is he's very, very, very credible in terms of his background. That's what I was just saying is like, you can see how, as we've been reviewing this coming in, that the defense is like looking at it at face value. And it's, you can see how it's not that much of a leap to get to like a bigger thing in terms of a cover up. Like you can really see it because it's like, this doesn't make sense. Like this dude does not have any ties that we know of yet. Of course, it could come out and cross any ties to any of these people. And he actually left Canton for a really long time. And most of his career was in Missouri initially and then DC. And like, I don't know, it's interesting. But his background is it couldn't get more impressive for law enforcement. It really couldn't. It was like one of the most impressive law enforcement backgrounds I've heard. You know, maybe apart from someone who becomes an expert witness, but right, I know Fender, right? He grew up here. He grew up here, but then I think he said he went to school out in Missouri, and then was it Missouri or Mississippi? I always get those two confused, but out there. And then I think it was Missouri. And then he did his early shit and his career was out there as well. Yeah. He had a Yankee White clearance for the president and then was like special security, something or other. Very impressive. Very, 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 very. And it went on. It's like, I was still shocked in processing the earlier shit. And then it just kept getting more impressive. It was Missouri. Okay. Thank you. So anyway, so it's interesting hearing some of the things that he's saying. But it does make you wonder, somebody with his background and his resume,
Lexus black in color SUV bearing Massachusetts registration 3
Yankee
GC 684.
Yankee White is correct.
And subsequently, did you come to find out whose vehicle that was?
Yes, once we queried the plate, we learned that the vehicle was registered.
Thank you, Super Planner Girl. We totally forgot that. This has been such a wild ride. That's not what I'm thinking of. Craziness. Because it was like, oh my God, like he's taking the stand and then like they went to lunch. So I also like his haircut. And also I did say not that this was a compliment, but I did say as soon as he took the stand, it's really funny. In my mind, it's not like I was trying to picture what he would look like because I don't ever do that. It's not like I'm trying to picture but it's just like as soon as he got on the stand, it's like how do I explain it? It's like I had deja vu. It's as if I knew he was going to look like that. And that's like completely what I expected. It was weird. He looks exactly like and maybe it's just because of my familiarity with Russian things. I don't know, but yeah, that's right. Great point. Yeah. We did compliment his resume big time. Yeah. Correct. It is very impressive.
to the defendant.
And as you're going by this.
And that's the other thing. Remember, we were both like, yeah, that's weird. Because after all that shit, he was way overqualified. Remember, we were like, we pointed it out. We were like, that's weird. And then he goes to he had to go back into training to join the police at the Massachusetts State Police. It is weird. Now, maybe they pay really well. I don't know. But I can't imagine. He must be making bank, though, security for the president, flying on Air Force One. He does look Russian. Oksana, who has joined the Squirrel Crew, but I haven't seen her in a couple of days. She is Russian, but was adopted. And she actually said the name she also said it was Russian. Because I was like, oh, it's either Ukrainian or Russian. She was like, it's Russian. So he had to go through all the basic shit that all the basic people do. No offense to them. Of course. Yeah, no, I'm glad you did point it out because it is weird that he came back and joined. Now I guess that's probably why he said, I wanted to come back home, right? Maybe that was the whole thing. He's like, yeah, I wanted to come back home. But also, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, what, if any, observations did you make of the vehicle as you were walking past it toward the home?
I observed a damaged rear right taillight fixture
Let
on
us
the
know what
vehicle.
it looked like, sir.
From my vantage point, I also told Trooper Proctor to approach the vehicle closer and confirm what I was seeing,
Okay.
which he did.
And as far as that damage to
Did you
the right
take pictures?
passenger
Did you
taillight
take
area, can you
pictures?
describe
Did they take
what it
pictures?
was that you
No,
saw
did you take
during
pictures?
that
I
initial
swear to God.
phase?
Absolutely. During the initial phase,
be.
I observed
Could be.
snow compacted and caked onto
For the love of
portions
God,
of the
they did not take fucking pictures. I'm going to lose my mind because this would be before the car was seized. And so at this point, that taillight should still be the way it was when it was hit, when it was cracked. On
taillight casing. There were pieces missing.
yeah, no,
And
that
I
was
knew that because the left side taillight was intact.
I swear, if we don't have pictures,
And as you
No.
made your way past the vehicle to the home, at some point, are you greeted or do you meet someone in the area of the home?
Yes, once we walked up to the front door, I rang the
Yeah, I
doorbell
know,
and
I know,
Mr. Reed
I know.
opened the front door with the storm door,
veteran.
glass storm door.
Yeah,
Unable to open due to the
Possible.
level of snow on the ground and on the front steps.
And so where were you directed to enter the home?
and we saw that. You
Mr.
guys remember when we were looking at those pictures during Carrie Roberts' testimony? We were actually talking about it. We were like, yeah, that would have to be shoveled to get a car out. Yeah, so we've seen that. I got a good visual of that. Hopefully you
Reed directed us to the garage door, at which point it opened up and Trooper Proctor and I entered the garage. We were once again greeted by Mr. Reed and invited into the home.
Or they could have rehomed them. Another option, could have rehomed the pictures.
And
Maybe
Officer
Chloe knows
Barrows,
where they are.
did he
Oh,
remain
wow.
when you and Trooper
That was a
Proctor
big
went into the home?
breath.
He remained outside with the vehicle.
Oh, let's hear that again, guys. Ding, ding, ding. That's why he took that. Did y'all hear me go, oh, wow, he took a deep breath. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. You guys, fucking hell, man. I swear. I
The front
swear to
door.
God.
I rang the doorbell and Mr. Reed opened the front door with the storm door, glass storm door, unable to open due to the level of snow on the ground and on the front steps.
And so where were you directed
Wait.
to enter the home from?
Mr. Reed directed us to the garage door, at which point it opened up and Trooper Proctor and I entered the garage. We were once again greeted by Mr. Reed and invited into the home.
There.
And Officer
He knows
Barrows,
what's
where did
next.
he remain when you and Trooper Proctor went into the home?
He remained outside with the vehicle.
There. That's why.
During our time in the home,
Oh my
Officer Barrows
God.
came in and asked if
Joking me.
what the plan was and offered to have DPW
Code red, goat, all the things. We need alarms. I don't have an alarm. I'm sorry. Like I said, this was the one opportunity before the car was seized to show that it wasn't fucked with, at least at some point. My fucking God, I can't, y'all. Oh God, I can't even type my exclamation point because I'm too upset right now with this. This is, I don't have the ability to cope with this. This is can you, I don't have any words. I don't have any words. I'm like angry and sad at the same time. This shouldn't be happening. It's I mean, but it's just been one thing after another, right? It's like in my mind, it was like, this is the one opportunity to not royally fuck something up that was really important. And which earlier, right? Well, yeah, and it's fruit of the poisonous tree. I think I mentioned, when did I mention that? The other day. That, again, it's like, why are we even here? Because again, it's all been fucked from the get-go. The chain of custody was fucked. We heard about that yesterday with the pieces of shit. And it's like, everything is through the poisonous tree. Like this shouldn't, they should have gone home, man. The solo cups, they should have gone home. Everybody go home. In fact, it shouldn't be happening in the first place. Should have just been dropped. But like, if there was some egregious error that let this come to trial at the solo cups, everyone should go home. I mean, this is just hard. Right. I mean, but again, it's like, but it all comes back to Trooper Proctor, doesn't it? Because he's the commonality in all of it. When you take these science people, love it. We're both so incensed, it's like hard to think straight, right? The science people who were really reputable and did a good job and, you know, whatever. It's like, but they were given trash, right? Trash in, trash out. They were given shit collected by Trooper Proctor. So the bottom line to all their shit is collected by Trooper. And now this, same thing. Before the car is even seized, and that's before it's put in the lolly port. I mean, again, it's like, there's nowhere along the way where it wasn't completely fucked. Like, show me where it wasn't completely fucked. What, if anything, isn't completely fucked? Nothing. That's the answer. He's alone with the vehicle. And the only one dude here who has a, like I said, right? He's like he seems like a legit dude. He's like maybe not the worst scum of the earth like other people, right? Like and of course that makes sense that he is stuck inside with the family and Trooper Proctor's out there with the vehicle, right? Maybe he wouldn't be someone to fuck with it. That wouldn't surprise me because it is that Yankee White thing is like the high security thing you could possibly have in the country. Like it's so they do for that type of shit, the type of testing they do is insane. And a lot of it is for like character and integrity and shit. Like maybe that deep breath is because he's so mad. Maybe I don't know. I'm just, my mind is going a million places right now because he's got to know how problematic that is. And maybe he hates it. I hate it. And there's Trooper Proctor with the vehicle alone with it and then takes it and then puts it in the lolly port with the solo cups. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Right. I agree, Fender. I agree. And I think that they probably had to, you know, if anything, keep him at arm's length, right? He's showing up with Trooper Proctor. But remember, like we were saying before, we'd heard his name in relation to doing the investigation, the interviews rather, right? Here we go. He's showing up at the house. But it's always Trooper Proctor who's handling the evidence, who's signing off on all the evidence, and then doing all the actual shit. So maybe they're like, here, you go hang out with the families. I'll be RB, because they know he's the type of dude who wouldn't stand for it, you know? Ooh, Fender, you could be onto something. And you know what? That's right. He even worked in Quantico, remember? The Quantico. How did we not think of it then? We should have thought of it then. Yeah, he said he worked in Quantico doing some crazy shit. Quantico. Like, oh my God, you are probably right. Wow. I hope so, because there needs to be some redemption somewhere with this. Maybe that's the way he's able to sleep at night, right? If he really knows what was going on.
Plow out the driveway.
Oh my God.
Because
Yeah,
the tow truck was not able to.
That was in his crazy resume, but he just glossed over it and moved on to the next insane thing. But Quantico, yeah. I think I even wound it because I was like, Quantico. However, there was so much that he was saying that, you know, it was just a stepping stone, right? But he said Quantico.
Maneuver into the driveway in order to retrieve that vehicle.
The FBI.
Now, as far as during any time that you were...
And actually, because Fender, you actually mentioned, you were like, is DC close to Virginia? It was around that time when you asked me that question. because he was in Quantico.
Seen her at this residence in Dublin.
Right.
Did you yourself or did you observe Trooper Proctor touch that vehicle?
Fucking
at any
Wally.
point in any way?
Wally, he was inside the house. Stop it, please. I'm sorry, but I'm offended for the jury because that's gross. That's gross.
No.
He was
Did you observe
inside.
Mr. Barrows or any other personnel beyond the tow
He
truck
just
driver
said he was
touch
inside with the
vehicle in any way?
family.
No.
As far as the tow truck driver was concerned, did you observe
No-
that
no
individual
one's worried about the
anywhere
tow truck
in the
driver
lower
at this point,
passenger
Wally.
side area of that vehicle at any time that you were there?
Right, I
No.
agree.
When
This
you
is
proceed inside the home, and when you get
I'm
inside
so
the home,
mad.
where did you go, and who, if anyone, did you speak?
We were directed by Mr. Reed to the living room where the defendant was seated on the couch. She had her laptop on her lap and her phone resting on the right armrest of the couch.
Now, in addition to the defendant and her father, who, if anyone else, was present when you talked to Ms. Reed?
The defendant's mother, Mrs. Reed, was also present in the home.
And the defendant's mother and the defendant's father, were they present throughout the course of your interview or your discussion with Ms. Reed?
Yes, they were.
And at any point in time, did you ask them to leave or anything like that?
I did not know.
Now, with respect to, can you describe sort of the demeanor or the tone of the conversation that you had with Ms. Reed that afternoon?
It was polite, courteous. She had just
meanwhile, Trooper
went through a
thought they
traumatic
fucking
event, so
car,
we were
probably.
considerate of her losing
Me too, because we need somebody. We need somebody in terms of the law enforcement related to this case, don't we?
her boyfriend. And we had
really-
a normal
I
tone
want to- I
conversation.
want that.
We were in the information gathering, fact-finding portion of the investigation. We simply wanted to collect her recollection of events that
And one thing I will say is there's been times where I remember being surprised because it kind of seemed like because he was grouped in with Proctor for some of this, right? Again, it was really only seems like for the interviews with people. But I guess in my mind, it's like, oh, if you group him with Proctor, well, he's automatically, scum. But I remember hearing some testimony along the way that was like, okay, here's the thing. I remember thinking the defense seemed to be using him as like their gauge for like legitimacy. Like whenever they were talking to certain witnesses, like they were like, instead of trying to show that this dude was like fucking the shit, like that was just a gut feeling that I had. But I remember thinking, well, but he's with Trooper Proctor, like surely he's scum. But like, then I remember thinking that the defense seemed to not be presenting questions with that type of light. In fact, like they were using him as like a gauge for like what's more accurate. But that was just a gut feeling. It's going to be interesting whenever we watch this trial, like going back, like in hindsight and like going through everything, because the way it's laid out from the prosecution, it's so hard to follow that there's no way to make sense of it as it goes along, really. So certain things will be better understood in hindsight or better noticed in hindsight once you have more information. But anyway, yeah, I remember being surprised a couple times. I was like, oh, I'm confused. Like, is he really not that bad? But I did get that impression a couple times. And I really hope it's true. I hope he's the good guy. And I hope you're right, Fender, dude. You win if you called that with the tipping off the FBI. Because I guess somebody had to, right? Like, they don't just find out on their own. I don't even know. I've never thought like, yeah. I'm sure there's information out there about something related to it. I know you sent something on Discord, but again, I'm staying away until after the trial. So
she remembered.
And so
Proctor and
throughout
Tully,
the
yeah,
course of this interview,
right.
How are you?
Tully
are you
definitely
standing, are you seated, or how are you
dirty,
positioned in
I think.
relation to Ms. Reed?
I mean,
How is she-
because Tully instructed everybody what to do at the crime scene, and then Proctor collected all the shit, right? So. Do you know you're saying Proctor's waiting outside? Is this like is that a figure of speech?
position in relation to you?
She was sitting on the couch. We were standing.
Oh, you mean waiting outside the house, I think, right? Okay, now that makes sense. I would imagine that's what you mean is waiting outside the house with the vehicle.
Across the room.
Yes.
I don't recall if there was a coffee table,
And
but
he's
if there
not
was a
hurt,
coffee
again.
table, we would be standing on the opposite side of that coffee table if there was one present. I do not remember if there was one present, but that's the distance approximately
How-
from me to defense table.
Fully prediction. I'm going to make a prediction right now. That coffee table thing is going to come up on cross.
And if you could describe to the jury sort of how did that interview or how did that conversation begin? What was said?
First things first, we introduce ourselves, advise the individual
Kelly's
we're
not testified yet,
speaking with,
so-
who we are, where we work, and what we're looking to find out. The defendant was advised that we're looking to get a recollection of the events, what happened, what she observed, what she remembers from the night before, and to walk us through the last 24 hours or so of activity.
And
Do
prior
I
to
need to give an instruction, Mr. Lally?
What instruction? Another
Not sure
one?
exactly. Why don't I see counsel at side?
Oh boy. Interesting. Okay, let's jump forward.
It's physical and mental condition, the lens that you have made the statement that she's alleged to have made. And we're about to hear testimony about statements allegedly made by the defendant, Karen Reed, allegedly concerning the crimes that are charged in this case. Before you may even consider any such statement as evidence, the Commonwealth must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant made the statement that she's alleged to have made, and that she made it voluntarily, freely, and rationally. In determining whether any statement made by the defendant was voluntary or not, you may consider all the surrounding circumstances. These include when and where the statement was made, the nature of any conversations with the police or questioning by the
This
police,
sounds like it's a good
and the
instruction.
defendant's
Yuriy.
physical and mental condition,
Okay.
including her intelligence, age, education,
I-
experience,
I
and
wonder
personality.
if this was the defense that wanted, I mean, that would make sense. Okay. Because again, it's really insane that well, I guess it's not that. They're relying on this statement from her. It seems like that's their whole case because they don't have anything else, right? Again, like we don't even know at this point if we're even going to hear from a medical examiner. So her statement is all they have. And it's so funny because like that was shot to shit right from the get-go with all the issue with the people that heard it. There were so many problems with that. But in my mind, and if you're a juror, even if you assume that somebody did hear that or that she did say that, there's so many logical explanations that fit within what that judge just said, and considering the emotional state at the time and shit like that. I guarantee you every juror is going to understand how, if you're panicking and you see that something happened to you, it's not hard to understand how she could have said that. It's just not hard. And like I've said a million times, with all the people who are guilty but claim that they're innocent and try to say that they didn't do it, they distance themselves as much as possible. The last thing that they do is blame themselves. However, with innocent people, that's what we see, survivor's guilt. So anyway, I've talked a lot about that, but it's just, I think that if that's what they're relying on, well, the motion for directed verdict will be good, hopefully.
Your decision does not turn upon any one factor. You must consider the totality of the surrounding circumstances. I'll instruct you about this again at the end of the case, but for purposes of, as you hear the testimony, that's the lens that you have to sort of hear it through. All right, with that, Mr. Lally?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Sergeant Bukhenik, when you
Absolutely.
began to speak,
Yep.
to-
It was her suggestion. That's the thing. Imagine had she never, okay, let's say she said it, or let's say somebody made it up, but let's just go with the idea of what if she said it, right? That they based their entire theory or whatever on what she said. That's how they started the whole thing. That's it. So like, had she never said it, who knows what would have happened? And then that could explain also too why it's like some of the things that were just supposed to support that were delayed coming in, right? Maybe the group didn't have an idea of who they were going to throw under the bus or how they were going to do it, and then they got lucky with Karen saying that, or they made it up, right? Or they made it up, or they, or it was a stretch. Maybe it was something like she was like, "Did I hit him?" Right? And then, you know what I mean? So there's a number of different ways this could go, but all of it really culminates in her being a scapegoat because of her saying that if she said it, and if she did say it. Again, to me, that's not, nobody ever just confesses to things that they, like, that just doesn't, It just doesn't happen. Only when you've got like extreme cases of people that are like completely detached from reality. I'm sure, Fender, you know what I mean? Like when there's people who just don't even realize they did it, but they know they did it. And so they don't have any sense of self-preservation and they're just like, whatever. But like usually it's intentional lying, right? Yeah. So
Prior to any sort of substantive conversation,
you know, make every effort
what,
to
if any, conversation
that's
did
what we
you
always
have with
do.
her about the conversation you were going to have?
What fucking question was that?
I just asked her,
Listen to that mess again.
What, if any, conversation did you have with her about the conversation you were going to have?
Okay, that gets a prize. Let me write a timestamp down. What conversation did you have with her about the conversation you were going to have? Wally, you were outdoing yourself today. I don't even know.
I just asked her to recount any events and the history between the actions that were taking place.
And how did she initially respond to that?
She stated that she's willing to answer our questions. She just doesn't want to go into too much detail about what transpired. And given the circumstances that she had just lived through, I understood and gave her that.
Yeah, there you
courtesy.
go. So he understands that people, see, that's actually really good testimony for the defense, right? And not only does it make him more credible and shit, which could help whoever, depending on, we don't really know yet, but that is good testimony for the defense because it shows that this guy, who actually so far had a really crazy, impressive resume, understands that people might say things like whatever, right? That when people are in an emotional state, he was like, yeah, that made sense to him. So that is good for the defense, I think.
And as far as that,
Also shows
you
compassion.
knew where that conversation went.
And it's interesting because he
you
says that
described
during
that
the
conversation, the
instruction
contents of
too.
that conversation to the jury.
Absolutely. The conversation was normal tone of voice, like I am speaking to you right now. Ms. Reed responded
She wasn't
in the same
yelling.
tone of voice, answered
Wasn't yelling,
questions.
yeah.
The content of the conversation began with her saying that, as I stated, she doesn't want to go into too much detail, but she was willing to answer our questions. We asked what she was,
Now,
what she had for plans, what she had for as far as activity the night before, leading up to
right.
Mr. O'Keefe being discovered. She stated that she was in a relationship with Mr. O'Keefe that morning, meaning the 28th of January. She got into a fight with Mr. O'Keefe over
Again,
what.
Something that anyone who did this would never say. I mean, literally, people know that even if they didn't do anything wrong, if they say that, they're like, people know, oh, I'm going to be a suspect, because it's always the girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, right? Typically, that's who they're going to look at first, and then you add in there that they had a fight. Someone who actually did anything even remotely that could be conceived as being, or construed with of being like involved or wrong or anything. Like the fact that she says that just shows that she knows she didn't, you know what I mean? Like that's crazy. That's crazy. That just, it's the fact that she's honest about that right off the bat, right? He did say we, but it could be the royal we. Let me rewind it just to be sure. I think he said Proctor's with him. Let me rewind it because it could be the royal we. Well, at some point Proctor comes inside. So
8th of January, she got into a fight.
I don't know why. Like Proctor's out with the car for some indeterminate period of time that will probably come out and cross, and then comes back inside. Like, what's he doing out there? You know,
with Mr. O'Keefe over what the niece and nephew were being fed for breakfast, or what they had for breakfast.
Oh wait, I didn't go back.
To recount any events and the history between the actions that were taking place.
And how did
And I have to say, and this is just like what we've heard before. So if they're fighting over what they niece and nephew had for breakfast. God bless her, right? That is not the type of fight. That's someone who's trying to help, because like racking her mind, like trying, like that's like if someone's like, try to think of a fight, try, and you're like trying, and like that's what you can come up with, right? Because that's not a fight by any stretch of the imagination, I don't think, for like any couple. And we heard something similar early on in the trial about the sweater. The niece got a sweater, and it's like that doesn't count as a fight. You know what I mean?
initially respond to that?
She stated that she's willing to answer our questions. She just doesn't want to go into too much detail about what transpired,
Like
and
you
given
say
the
our, It could
circumstances
be the agency, right? So
that she had just lived through, I understood and gave her that courtesy.
And as far as that interview or that conversation went, can you describe that conversation or the contents of that conversation to the jury?
Absolutely. The conversation was normal tone of voice like I am speaking to you right now. Ms. Reed responded in the same tone of voice, answered questions. The content of the conversation began with her saying that, as I stated, she doesn't want to go into too much detail, but she was willing to answer our questions. We asked what she had for plans, what she had for as far as activity the night before, leading up to Mr. O'Keefe being discovered. She stated that she was in a relationship with Mr. O'Keefe that morning, meaning the 28th of January. She got into a fight with Mr. O'Keefe over what the niece and nephew were being fed for breakfast, or what they had for breakfast. She went on to say that she met Mr. O'Keefe at C.F. McCarthy's approximately 9 p.m. the night of the 28th of January, 2022. She stated that the gentlemen were drinking, consuming beers, Bud Lights, and she was drinking vodka soda.
is she gonna say she took one with her?
Prior to moving on to the bar at Waterfall, the defendant was asked where she parked her vehicle. She told me that she parked her vehicle on Washington Street
It might
across
be the Royal We.
the street from C.F. McCarthy's, facing northbound. So the vehicle was on the side of Waterfall Bar and Grill. We went on through the conversation.
You know, what if this is just a thought? What if the Kleenex is there because what if it's like because he's going to get emotional, but not for the reasons you think? I don't know. But also, again, it's like they didn't offer Kleenex to Carrie Roberts.
In the interview
Doesn't make
to
sense.
the Waterfall restaurant, at which point she was asked if she left C.F. McCarthy's with a beverage or a container from that establishment, to which point she stated that she did not.
Interesting.
She also confirmed that
Okay.
Mr. O'Keefe did not have any injuries on him when she interacted with him at C.F. McCarthy's or the Waterfall. He did not get into any verbal or physical altercations with anyone to have sustained those injuries. She stated that once at the Waterfall, they stayed for approximately an hour, hanging out with acquaintances. And then they left the Waterfall. She drove them to, after they were invited to a residence, she drove them to a location in Canton where she dropped Mr. O'Keefe off. She was asked if she saw Mr. O'Keefe walk into the...
I'm taking notes. I'm going to rewind it just a second because I want to make sure I heard him correctly about Karen with the glass, because I'm writing some things down here.
The Waterfall. They stayed for approximately an hour, hanging out with acquaintances. And then they left the Waterfall. She drove them to, after they were invited to a residence,
Okay, I think I need to go back a
she
little
drove
farther.
them to the Waterfall. They stayed for that Mr. O'Keefe did not have. She told me that she parked her vehicle on Washington Street
Okay.
across the street from C.F. McCarthy's, facing northbound. So the vehicle was on the side of Waterfall Bar and Grill. We went on through the conversation, the interview, to the Waterfall restaurant, at which point she was asked if she left C.F. McCarthy's
Okay.
with a beverage or a container from that establishment, to which point she stated that she did not.
I think the reason they asked that is because at this point they have already interviewed the Alberts and the McCabe's, and they all told them that she did. So at this point, it's like you're trying to see if people are going to have the same information, right? So it's like when they get this information from her, she says she didn't have it. I suppose there could be a choice there. It's like a fork in the road. Either she's lying and they're all telling the truth, or they're lying and she's telling the truth. And who do you believe? I think that's why. And it seems like in this case, you know, they went the first option with she must be lying and they must all be telling the truth. And then if you imagine everything through that lens, that's not what they're supposed to do, obviously, right? But it would seem like that might be part of what happened, potentially.
She also confirmed that Mr.
They're not.
O'Keefe did not have any injuries on him when she
Of
interacted
course,
with him.
the family, the Albert family and their status and all that, and the law enforcement, like, I'm sure that didn't help, right? Like, they probably even subconsciously wanted to believe the Alberts, right? And the McCabe's. That seems like that would be either they were coerced or maybe they weren't coerced, but like there's like some sort of, you know, like with the Murdochs, right? It's like this pressure that you just, no one has to even say it. I don't know. But that, you can see how that might be what happened.
See if
I believe
McCarthy's
her
or
too,
the
Senator.
waterfall.
Yes.
He did not get into any verbal or physical altercations with anyone to have sustained those injuries. She stated that once at the waterfall, they stayed for approximately an hour, hanging out with
fact that she
acquaintances.
talked about the fight is amazing.
And then
That says
they
a lot.
left the waterfall.
It says a lot.
She drove them to, after they were invited to a residence, she drove them to a location in Canton where she dropped Mr. O'Keefe off. She was asked if she saw Mr. O'Keefe
Now
walk
that's-
into the
We have to
home.
remember that her memory's been tainted because she remembered, from what we've heard so far, she remembered leaving him at the waterfall. And it was Jen McCabe who was like, no, I saw you. So again, this is a situation where, it's, in my opinion, she could be relying entirely on trusting someone else's memory more than her own. And then going with that. So now she's telling them that's what happened. That's entirely possible because we heard that from both Carrie and Jen, that the whole thing about the house came from Jen. And Karen remembered leaving him at the waterfall.
Home at 34 Fairview, and she stated she did not. She stated that she made a 3-point turn after dropping him off and left. She was asked whether or not.
The other thing is that see, something like that could be filling in the blanks. If you've been drinking, okay, if you've been drinking and you're like, here's what I remember. And then your friends are like, no, that's not what happened. You're not remembering it correctly because you've been drinking. And you're like, oh, okay. And they give you some information. Like, let's just say they start with like, yeah, you took him to the house and dropped him off. Then your mind is going to try to fill in the blanks of what you don't remember. I think it's probably, if I had to guess at this juncture, they asked her how she drove there and how she drove back, and she doesn't remember. But I think if memory serves, there was something about, was it a dead end? I'm trying to fucking remember. I have the map. It could be, like, in my mind, it could be her memory trying to fill in the blanks because she doesn't actually remember. And so she's using logic to fill in the blanks, because that's what your memory would do. She not only had she been drinking, but then she had this entirely traumatic situation just hours prior. And now they're asking you questions about what happened. You're trying to be helpful, and you might be slightly embarrassed that you don't remember much because you were drinking. But that, I think we hear that even with people just from like trauma response, like your memory is trying to fill in the blanks. So let me search for the house and see if it's, but my guess is whether it's on a one-way street or dead end street or not, it's like the only way she could have turned around to get home or something, right? Like there's a reason for that. It would have been like she got some piece of information and then filled in the blank. That's my thought. I'm looking for the house again. Okay, there's the house. So yeah, so it connects between Chapman Street and Cedar Crest. And we've heard a lot of talk about, there's like one way you can go, or sorry, there's different ways you can go. We've heard a lot about that from the other testimony. So my guess is this. My guess is they were like, so which way did you go? Because they've asked everybody that, like all the other witnesses, including Brother Nagel and co. Like everybody, like they asked, like, which way did you go? Which way did you get there? Which way did you leave? My guess is they asked her the same question and she probably doesn't remember. And then she said she went back the same direction she came, and then you have to explain that. And so you fill in the blanks with a 3-point turn. I mean, that is completely plausible to me. Right. And I wrote down notes from his testimony and all their testimony. That's okay, Super Planner Girl. There was just all the testimony was conflicting about this. So
Mr.
I
O'Keefe,
had a thought at one point, and I don't remember when. I probably timestamped it. It was during one of the recaps, and I think it was pretty early on. I had a thought at some point, and it's just a thought. I had a thought at some point, what if somebody else drove her car to the house with him or something like that? Or he drove it. Like, I had a thought, oh God, but I had it more fleshed out at the time. See, now I can't fucking remember. Because remember, Jen wanted her to go with, Jen wanted Karen to leave with her. I don't know. The other thing is I still, in my mind, don't know for sure that we can, I still feel like, do we know for sure that was Karen's SUV? Now, there could be data. It just hasn't been presented in court yet, right? Like telemetry. We need, because for the longest time, I actually was thinking that it wasn't her car. That it was, because there's like, the Alberts have a billion different black SUVs in their family. And so do the other, there's so many black SUVs. In fact, I was taking notes on that initially. And I was like, it's entirely possible that it wasn't even her. And if there was a woman in it, it could have been anybody, right? I don't know. And if Jen was trying to separate them, I don't know. It just, we don't have actual evidence that it was her car, even. The only thing that made me stop going down that train of thought was because with Ricky Dintano, Alan Jackson is on cross and says something like, well, isn't it pretty much common knowledge that it was her car? Which he could have been doing that that could have been a strategy to get him to say that, right? Because it was interesting, because I was like, common knowledge, but we don't have evidence of it. And like, why is the prosecution not objecting? I thought it was weird, but I was like, okay, well, he's saying it's common knowledge, like as if this just goes without saying, but that could have been a strategy, you know? But at that point, I was like, well, let me just leave that one behind and start trying to put energy into other things with this case, because I was spending a lot of time trying to figure out whose SUV it was. Anyway, there's a lot. I know. I couldn't say it better myself. All roads lead to Rome and Jen, for sure. Yeah. The other thing is there's something real fishy about the Alberts. Remember there was that black SUV they're all real cagey about, and they're like, oh, we don't know if it existed at the time, blah, blah. I still had this was one of my earlier on things, was like that vehicle was in the garage at some point, and then out of the garage at some point. And then they really wanted to make sure nobody could testify to having seen that vehicle in the garage for some reason. There was just, and all this is stuff that I brought up during other recaps, but like I've had a lot of different ideas that I've kind of just like had to abandon at some point because there's just so much stuff to try to sort through because the prosecution's a disaster. But I've had a lot of different thoughts about this that still could be possible, I suppose. Oh, yeah, the Jeep Cherokee slip up. Yeah, I commented on that when that happened. And I was like, interesting, because at that thought, I was like, well, did Higgins leave his Jeep with the plow at the police station and borrow Caitlin Alberts' vehicle? Because the whole story with her boyfriend didn't make any sense. Yeah, I mean, you know, I like trying to think of it with using critical thinking and deductive reasoning based on what we've heard in trial. Okay. That sounds good, Fender. Maybe we'll have answers. Wouldn't that be great?
Excuse me, let me back up. She was asked if she knew, how she found out about the damage to her vehicle, to which she stated, quote, I don't know, it happened last night, end quote.
That's not enough for murder, yo. It's just fucking not.
Point.
Y'all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. Again, being a car driver, I've cracked my taillight a couple times. My mom has done this like many times. But let's take whether it's a cracked taillight or a light bulb being out. The only way that typically you're going to learn that is if someone pulls you over. I'm just going to go ahead and start with that, okay? That The way that you learn that is if someone pulls you over, because you don't see, like, it's easier to tell if there's a headlight out, but a tail light, a brake light, shit like that, usually you're not going to see that because you're driving the car. And if the car's not on, you may not see it, especially if it's dark. So, like, you know, is the odds of you're like, okay, someone could actually have backed into her car with it parked and cracked the taillight and drove off. And it would be entirely possible for her to get in the car without knowing that. Like, in other words, it doesn't even have to be that she's the one that cracked it. But even if she did, she wouldn't even know the damage. And she was also drinking. So, again, it sounds to me like she's saying something that's honest to be helpful. And she doesn't really have all the details because she was drinking. But also some of that is completely plausible that you wouldn't know, like I was just saying. And, like, she's giving them that information. Like that statement in and of itself doesn't mean anything. I just, yeah. And if that's a good point as well. Oh my God. Yeah, I agree with that. This is just tough. I think he knows it's tough because look at his mouth. Let's watch it again. Do you think in his mind he's like, yeah, I know that this is bullshit. That's not enough. And that doesn't mean anything when you put it in context.
She was asked if she knew how she found out about the damage to her vehicle, to which she stated, quote, "I don't know. It happened last night." End quote.
That's not enough. I think he knows it's not enough.
Now, at some point earlier in the interview,
Right, there you go. Thank you, Fender. Thank you. Because that's what I was saying. I was like, yeah, between human bone and human parts and the plastic of the taillight, yeah, the taillight's going to be the worst for the wear and the human's going to come out okay. And she didn't say how she found out. Another great point could have been Jen, right? Maybe. Or, well, I guess according to Jen, doesn't she mention the taillight when she calls? Again, but, you know, again, I don't know how much you want to believe in that. Well, yeah, of course, right? I will tell you this. You could find any accident reconstruction specialist or someone who knows cars or someone, you're not going to find, I would bet my life, Frodo's life and my violin and all my everything on this. Like, there's not going to be a single person you're going to find that's going to testify to the damage done either to the vehicle or to him and say that had anything to do with each other. There's just no way. I guarantee you, even Mike Sutton, the dude with the 2 green boys and the lasers, even he wouldn't go that far. Seriously.
Who Mr. O'Keefe was with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yep, not in a weasel way. Yep, I agree.
She indicated that Mr. O'Keefe was with Mr. Camarano, Kurt Roberts.
Yes.
At which point she was asked to provide contact.
That's what I think.
Information, meaning phone
She
number.
was being honest. She was, and you could just tell from his face. He's like, yeah, this is a disaster and a complete miscarriage. Yeah, they took exactly. She was because he starts with like they were discussing about what they had for breakfast, and it's like yeah, and she's calling that a fight because she's trying to help. Like that's so, like, you know, I don't know. It's like you feel sorry for her in a way that she's like calling that a fight when everyone's like, that's not a fight. You know what I mean? I might have been taught. Hold on, let me back it up. I might have been talking over that, Fender.
Entering a passcode and provided that phone number to.
Now, at some point earlier in the interview, what, if any, indication did she give as to who Mr. O'Keefe was with when she arrived at C.H. McCarthy's and sort of how long he had been with those respective people?
She indicated that Mr. O'Keefe was with Mr. Camarano, Kurt Roberts, at which point she was asked to provide contact information, meaning phone numbers for those individuals. At which time
Fender. So maybe you're not. Yeah. So that was with Murdoch. Mike Sutton was the defense expert who offered the theory that it was like 5'2", 11-year-olds with green lasers that actually committed the murders. Essentially, like, I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially what it came down to. And then in rebuttal, Alan Wilson, the attorney general, the state's attorney general, referred to them as two gray boys. There's like we got a whole slew of inside jokes from the trial regarding this. And I forget that maybe some people don't know about them. But yeah, two gray boys, the 5'2", 11-year-olds. Well, we have another saying they've trained their whole lives for this. We have a lot of inside jokes with that. It's great. Mike Sutton was right. Mike Sutton was the quote unquote expert.
She picked up the phone on the right armrest of the couch, manipulated the device, entering a passcode.
Candace makes a great point. Yep. Again, what Candace is saying is in line with what I have seen from anybody whenever they're talking about the damage done by a car. And a lot of that I learned from, like, again, with Stephen Smith, because everybody really thought he got hit by a car, but they couldn't find every single expert that came in was like, it's not consistent or whatever, right? In terms of being hit like by a car. And so, what Candace is saying is exactly what I had heard and understood from other experts about how that goes. And the other thing with the shoes too.
And provided that
But
phone
that's
number
not if you're on a
to
bike.
Trooper
That's if you're
Proctor and I.
walking, yes.
At any point in time in the conversation or interview you had with her, what, if anything, did the defendant say in regard to why she had not gone into the residence at Fairview Road herself?
The defendant stated that she was having stomach issues and did not want to enter the residence.
What, if anything, did she tell you about
I
later
wonder.
on that morning of the 20th?
We don't know yet if the vomit on John O'Keefe was his vomit, but that's another thought. What if it was her vomit? Maybe she was throwing up?
She stated that when she woke up, she began looking for Mr. O'Keefe. And when she found him in the snow, she began CPR on Mr. O'Keefe.
And what, if anything, did she say to you about any observations she made of Mr. O'Keefe later on that morning as far as any injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
The defendant stated that while she was performing CPR, Mr. O'Keefe had sustained injuries and was bleeding from the nose and the mouth.
And if you recall, what, if anything, did she say about Mr. O'Keefe's eyes at that time?
The defendant stated that Mr. O'Keefe's eyes were swollen.
Is that both eyes? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that fact right there, which I think is accurate, also shows that it wasn't just, it was likely Higgins, but also, remember, John knew that they had a kiss or whatever. And, we see them drinking and getting, I don't know. I wonder too, if she's like, I think she didn't want to deal with Higgins, but I think also it's like, not that this would be why she left not wanting to deal with it, but like, it just shows like, I know I've said it before. I still think that like they could have gotten into it over her. You know what I mean? But I think Higgins probably started it because he was like, yeah.
Now, as the interview
Well,
progressed,
I don't even know
at
his
some
name
point,
anymore.
did you ask questions seeking further details?
Yes, I did.
And details about what specifically were you asking?
Once we got to the point in time where the defendant told me she did a 3-point turn,
Right.
I asked her to walk through step by step of her operating the vehicle and exactly what she did. Prior to that, I asked her, so she was asked to give a step-by-step recollection of how what she did in manipulating the vehicle and leaving the scene.
Here comes a 3-point turn. I'm wondering if
At
this
that
is
point,
filling in the
was
blanks.
interview terminated?
Yes, it was.
Now, once the interview concluded or was terminated, what, if anything, did you do?
Remember
to Ms. Reed's phone?
Remember how they asked everybody if they saw lines in the snow? And everybody said no, except 2 people. Jen and Matt McCabe said they saw something that looked like a wave in the road or a weave, but that's not a 3-point turn either. And now we know why that question was asked. Because that to me, now it makes sense. Remember, like, okay, there it is. Like I was saying, I was thinking maybe that was her filling in the blanks with her memory because she's been given information that she was there, but she doesn't remember it. And she's been through a trauma and she was drinking. Now it makes sense as to why the defense was asking everybody if they saw any lines in the road. Because they're going to hope to prove, it's clear to me now, like they're going to hope to prove that that was exactly what it was. That was her mind. That was her filling in the blanks, trying to be helpful because it didn't happen. But they asked everybody the question about, did it seem like a 3-point turn? And everybody said no. Everybody said no about the 3-point turn. And I kept thinking, like, what the heck? You know, but everybody said it didn't look, everybody denied anything looking like a 3-point turn.
In the defendant's view.
Once the interview was terminated, I advised Ms. Reed that her phone was going to be seized as evidence and her vehicle was going to be seized as evidence as
Now,
well.
he might be the one who was the witness. Oh my God, you guys. He might be the one who was the witness to Trooper Proctor with the nude pictures. Oh my God, 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 oh my God.
Well,
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Did you subsequently seize both of those
Oh my
items,
God.
sir?
Oh my
yes, we
God.
did.
Get to the phone. I want to
Similar
hear.
to the clothing
We've
mystery
been
search,
waiting
as
for
far as
this.
evidence was
We've been
concerned,
waiting
was
for
that
this.
packaged and taped and transported back to the office in a similar fashion.
The device was, the vehicle was transported via tow truck that was dispatched by
Imagine how
Dayton
mortified
PD
he would be
on our request.
with this. This must
So
be
when
hard.
you get back outside
We have to do the Kleenex.
of the residence after the conclusion of your interview with the defendant, what, if anything, did you observe going on with regard to the driveway and or any other vehicles that weren't there when you?
Oh, Lolly, did you just skip? You better.
During our interview, I glanced out the window and I saw flashing amber lights and a tow truck plowing the driveway. So the driveway was plowed and the tow truck was, excuse me, plow truck was plowing the driveway, not the tow truck. And the tow truck was loading the vehicle onto the flatbed.
And I
And
guess Proctor
from-
was out there the whole time with it. But also, Lolly needs to get to this nude phone thing. If he was the witness, which it sounds like, because they two of them were together for some of this stuff, and this is when they seized the phone. If Lolly doesn't bring this out on direct, I mean, it doesn't matter. This case is fucked anyway. But like, he already, like, that was in the opening statements from the defense. Like, he has to address that head on. He probably should have fucking started with it.
At any point in time when you were outside of the
Yeah.
residence, what, if any, observations did you make as far as cameras or anything like that on the exterior of the home?
I did not see cameras on the exterior of the home at that point in
We've
time.
already seen the footage from
Subsequent
the
to that date,
cameras.
did you become aware that there were exterior cameras that record on the exterior of the home?
Subsequently, yes, we learned that there was video recording of the residence and the driveway.
Yep. And guess what?
Yes.
Well, he's a fucking idiot, man. He thinks the jury's stupid because you know what? Like, he's hoping they're going to forget that they already said at the very beginning of his testimony that Karen's Lexus was in the garage and Trooper Proctor was in the garage with the Lexus. What a fucking idiot, man. It's infuriating. And now he's like, oh, they had exterior camera. He actually clarified. Let's hear it again. This is insane. Lolly's trying to act like there's cameras and it would have been seen if Trooper fucked with shit. He clarifies it. Listen to this. This is
The driveway and or any other vehicles that weren't there when you went into the house.
During our interview, I glanced out the window and I saw flashing amber lights and a tow truck plowing the driveway. So
My guess
the
is
driveway
Lolly
was
gonna be
plowed
done?
and the tow truck was, excuse me, plow truck was plowing the driveway, not the tow truck.
Wow.
And the tow truck was loading the vehicle onto the flatbed.
Here.
And from at any point in time when you were outside of the residence, what, if any, observations did you make as far as cameras or anything like that on the exterior of the home?
I did not see cameras on the exterior of the home at that point in time.
Subsequent to that date, did you become aware that there were exterior cameras that record on the exterior of the home?
Subsequently, yes, we learned that there was video recording of the residence and the driveway.
So he makes sure to say the residence in the driveway because again, the car was in the garage. Yes. Well, it is these days. I don't have anything like that, but a lot of homes do. Have you heard of a Ring doorbell fender? Because a lot of places, I'm like probably the only person I know that doesn't have that, but the Ring, and actually John O'Keefe had one. The Ring is like the easy way these days that people get security, where it's like, you can, if you don't want anything elaborate, you can just have it where it's like, it shows who's ringing the doorbell and shit. Yeah, that's true. He kind of does. But yeah, it's really common. Oh, you don't either. Cool. A lot of people do, a Ring doorbell. Wow. So it's like how to explain it? I guess it's like a doorbell and a camera built in one. Again, I don't have one, but like it shows when people come up to your door. So people can see, like, I think part of it was like some people were complaining about people stealing their Amazon packages. Have y'all heard of that? And like, the way that they caught these people was on Ring because they could see the Amazon package getting delivered and then they could see someone sneaking over and taking the package. Like that's something funny, right? But other people, it's actually like they can see wildlife that comes by, or they can just see people coming and going. And also it's like you control it through an app on your phone. So if people are like out of town on vacation, like in the way that it works, well, you can configure it different ways, but from my understanding, you can adjust the sensitivity, but it can be like motion detected so that it's not just like coming on all the time, but like it cuts on if there's motion, and then it alerts your phones. Like if you're away, you can literally go and watch like what's happening at your front door. To my understanding, again, I don't have one. Yeah. And like, again, like it's coming in a lot of trials. Like one of the things that people were saying about the Alberts, including me, was like, don't they have a Ring camera? Because like everybody has one these days, pretty much. A lot of people. But especially if you're like law enforcement and have a big house, I don't know. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a whole thing. Yeah, it's like it's not the employees, it's like people in the neighborhood or whatever, people that are just looking to they just take Amazon packages and see what they are and then try to sell them. I don't know. It's a thing. But I'll tell you what, Ring cameras have cut down on that, I can guarantee you. But there's like all kinds of stuff. Like even in like Chris Watts, right? I don't remember if it was a Ring camera, but like part of the thing that was really big in that case was the neighbor's security footage. Actually, God, there's so many trials. Letitia Stout. Like there's a lot of cases where the neighbor had a camera and that footage was instrumental in solving a murder. It's just so many of them. Right. No. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've heard of some other crazy stories where people had some funny things happen with Ring cameras that were not what the intended use was. But yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head though.
You on the approach?
Yes.
I wonder, is he going to be done? Like, I can't. But anyway, yeah. So he was clarifying it was the driveway and the exterior of the house. It's interesting, right?
Showing you a disc. You recognize that, sir?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
I recognize it to be Dighton videos as it relates to the location where the interview and the vehicle was seized from.
Okay.
And what's contained on that, as far as the video is concerned, is that fair and accurate trail, what you observed as far as the defendant's vehicle being loaded onto a tow truck?
Yes, it is.
That's fine. Nobody cares. Lolly. This is disgusting.
No objection.
No one's worried about that. Is he really doing this? Is he really trying to say that the vehicle wasn't damaged in the process of being towed? Nobody's thinking that. Nobody's thinking that. You've got to be kidding me. He's completely, literally what happened is this witness testified that Trooper Proctor was in the garage alone with that Lexus and Lolly just ignored it and left it there. He ignored it. And now he's like going on like, I can't. Yeah, stay hydrated. Oh my God.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish those two short clips for the jury.
Yes.
Too much for me. I'm glad you have cameras, Candace. Yeah, a lot of places really do need them. I mean, all my neighbors have them. I just don't. I mean, the Ring doorbells.
Jaleel, you need to keep your voice up.
The Ring doorbells have become so inexpensive that it's the type of thing where it's like, my understanding of it is it's like almost like again, like almost everybody has one. It's like you can almost assume that everybody has one. It's almost like a thing of like, oh, how's your Ring doorbell? You know what I mean? Like it's like a normal thing now. Because it used to be the type of thing where it's like if you have crime or whatever, or maybe you live in a mansion, but like the cost of these Ring doorbells, if I recall, like you can get them for like $100 maybe or less or around there. Like they become so inexpensive that it's like people get them for Christmas, for example. Like I remember there was a Christmas where like everybody in my family got one except me because I was like, I'll never use it. But like it's like, you know what I mean? It's just like everybody's going to have one type thing. Because they're so easy to set up. Like they just install right, like easy connect to Wi-Fi. There's no there's nothing. They're so easy and inexpensive. It's kind of like why not type of thing. I think. Right there you go. Great. See.
The Sergeant Bukhenik from this
amazing. That sounds amazing.
Video,
like entertaining and delightful.
The
Another.
Yes, I do.
that same driveway that
Watch
you walked up from
watch
the
your
street
pets
by the house.
or wildlife.
Yes, it is.
As far as the vehicle is concerned, you what do you recognize that vehicle to be?
Oh,
That would be the Lexus SUV
You
owned
can
by the
really
defendant, Bear, Massachusetts, registration 3 GC
smell it.
684.
wow. Yeah, you can see a big difference. Oh, well, they're able to drive it. Wow. That's four-wheel drive for you there, Fender.
Two individuals just exited that vehicle. Is that correct, Sergeant?
That's correct.
Do you recognize?
We've
who
already
those
seen this,
individuals are,
actually.
as far as who they are and what part of the vehicle they exited from?
Yes, the passenger side exit was the defendant, and then the driver's side vehicle was Mr. Reed.
That'd be the father, is that correct?
That's correct.
Who's going to be the witness? Now, Sergeant, towards the end of that video, did you observe the defendant and her father in any specific area in relation to that vehicle?
Yes, I observed the defendant and her father at the rear right taillight, gesturing or signaling towards the affected, damaged, and missing parts of the taillight.
I'll allow just the direction that they were signaling out.
Interesting. I didn't see
Okay.
that. I'm going to rewind
As
it.
far as that vehicle's position within the driveway. Now, Sergeant, towards the end of that video, did you observe the defendant and her father in any specific area in relation
What do
to
you
that?
guys think? I think it could be, but it also could be something else. I think it also could have snow on it. Let's look one more time. That's not enough. That's just, and again, it's that even if it was, it's not enough for murder charge. Sorry,
The
guys.
rear right taillight, gesturing or
Not
signaling
enough for
towards
murder
the
charge.
affected, damaged, and
Nope,
missing.
nope, certainly not. Even if that's what it is. I don't. Let's look again.
Now, the Sergeant Bukhenik, from this particular point of the video, do you recognize the vehicle that is just pulled into the driveway?
Yes, I do.
Is that the same driveway that you had walked up from the street to the house in Dayton on that morning?
Yes, it is.
As far as the vehicle is concerned, what do you recognize that vehicle to be?
That would be the Lexus SUV owned by the defendant, Bear, Massachusetts, registration 3 GC 684.
Someone speak at the press plate, right? Two individuals just exited that vehicle. Is that correct, Sergeant?
That's correct.
Do you recognize who those individuals are as far as who they are and what part of the vehicle they exited from?
Yes, the passenger side exit was the defendant, and then the driver's side vehicle was Mr. Reed.
That'd be the father, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, and the other thing is too, again, this is still the next day. So she could have easily bumped into something leaving the bar or whenever. We don't have any way of knowing when the last time it wasn't broken was, right? Like, or maybe there is a way, but maybe that's going to come in with the defense. I don't know. Like, in other words, because again, that shit can happen without your knowledge. If somebody else bumps into you, y'all, my car has like no damage to it. I have a big old scrapey thing on the side of my door. I have no idea when or how that happened, but I did not do it. It was at some point I was in a my car was parked. I was probably at the grocery store. Somebody did that on accident, probably with their car door. I don't know. And I left and I didn't see it. And then I didn't notice it. And like, I don't know how long it's been there before I noticed it. Right. But my point is like, I had nothing to do with it, but it's even more like if you consider damage to the back of your vehicle, again, usually that's the type of shit you're not going to notice unless like, I don't know. So it's just possible that could have happened in any way without it being her fault or whatever. It doesn't connect anyway. But yes, I can see though, with her being worried, right? Again, it's like only the innocent people who are going to be like, could I possibly have done this? Is there anything I could have done different? You know what I mean? Like that are going to question it. Somebody who was guilty would cover that shit up with duct tape or something, you know?
Now, Sergeant, towards the end of that video, did you observe the defendant and her father in any specific area in relation to that vehicle?
Yes, I observed the defendant and her father at the rear right taillight, gesturing or signaling towards the affected, damaged, and missing parts of the taillight.
I'll allow just the direction that they were signaling out. Okay.
As far as that vehicle's position within the driveway, is that?
And the other thing, when you consider the fact that it was snowing and everybody was drinking, the odds that somebody in this party, when I say party, I mean the group, or even a stranger from the bar or any bar or whatever, like just the odds of someone backing into her with her car being parked at the bar, for example, while the car was outside, like, and cracking, like those odds are so good, right? And you wouldn't know.
Observed it in when you and Trooper Proctor and Officer Barrows were walking up the driveways and all.
Yes, it was.
And Ms. Gilman, if I got a second of those two videos. Again, Sergeant Bukhenik, if you could describe to the jury what you observed of significance within this particular video.
This video captures the vehicle being moved into position to be loaded up onto the flatbed for transport from the scene.
Now I'm confused. I thought he said it was in the driveway though, the car. Didn't he say it was in the driveway at the very beginning? That's what I've been thinking this whole time. I thought, or sorry, in the garage. Oh, I thought I heard him say garage. Do you guys, I remember garage. Do you guys remember garage? Because that's where he said Trooper Proctor was with the Lexus in the garage, right? Is there more than one Lexus? I don't know.
Yeah, you really have to keep your voice up.
Oh my God, Lol.
Sergeant Bukhenik, from this still image from this video, what, if anything, is significant you observed in relation to the vehicle at this time that is being loaded onto the
Well, the text is blocked.
The rear tail light is illuminated. You could see a white light coming from that.
No, that
tail
looks
light.
like it's working.
using that laser pointer you have before you just direct your attention to the specific area you're talking
No,
Right there.
a lot of them have that. What? This is crazy. This is crazy. Okay. Thank you. But then Proctor stayed out in the garage, didn't he, for a time? Or oh, Proctor and driveway. Okay.
about. When you can take that down.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Now, Sergeant Bukhenik, as far as when you left the residence in Dayton, where is it that you went?
Can we turn the lights on, Mr. Lally?
Yes, my apologies.
Turn the lights up.
Once we left the residence in Dayton, we proceeded following the tow truck back.
I learned this the hard way. It doesn't matter, even if it's the teensiest little, they pull you over. It's just like if you have a light out. And part of that is because you don't usually know you have it. I think that's part of it, is to let you know, because typically they're going to give you a warning. Because like, again, this has happened to me so many times, and it's always like, do you know what? I'm pulling you over? No. Oh, well, you have a taillight out. Oh, thank you. I had no idea. Or, oh, your taillight's cracked. Oh, thank you. I had no idea. And actually, I had a cop actually tell me, I learned it this way, because I was like, oh, I had no idea. And he was like, you want to know a little tip? He was like, if you take just a piece of red duct tape and just put it over, he was like, no one will be able to pull you over because they won't be able to tell the difference. Like he said, as long as the coloring is in the right place or something like that. Like I guess the duct tape actually serves the same purpose as the plastic, which is the plastic is just something for the light to shine through that like illuminates it or something. And so he said that like, as long as you have something there that, in other words, this kind of sounds like a stupid law to me, right? Because it's like, doesn't actually have to be intact. It just has to be like, it's like superficially intact in a way, right? Like you could so I did that. I put the duct tape on it. It was fine. I didn't get it replaced for quite a while because I kind of forgot about it, because literally you couldn't tell. The duct tape did the job. He was right. The red duct tape worked. So
Back to the Canton Police Department.
it's on. Yeah.
And
It
was
looks
there anywhere
normal to
else
me.
that either you or the tow truck went between Dayton and the Canton Police Department?
No, sir.
And when you say we, it's yourself and Trooper Proctor, is that correct?
Now
That's-
the light bulb would not be affected, right? Because it's just the housing that gets cracked. The light bulb can go out. But that's a different thing. The light bulb is like those just go out on their own. But like you can have it cracked with that's what happened to me, right? So the light would work no matter what.
Correct.
Now, once you arrived at the Canton Police Department, where did the vehicle go?
The vehicle was unloaded and put into a heated sally port located at the Canton Police Department.
But it wasn't.
And in reference to the Canton Police Department and putting it in the Sally Port, why was it that it was taken to that location?
It's a location that serves as a storage for a vehicle that would suffice for the size of the vehicle. The location is, as it related to the crime that took place, was investigated, was in that town. So we utilized their facility. It was also a heated facility to help melt the snow that had been accumulating on the.
Yes, that's correct. That has happened to me. Yes. I didn't know until I got pulled over, but yes. Even if the light goes on, if the housing is cracked, they pull you over. Yep. That's why the duct tape solves that problem until you can get it fixed, because then they can't see the crack. Yep. And again, I think part of that is because it might be because they realize if you're the driver, you probably don't know, because again, that's how easy it is for that to happen. Like, that's my point. That's how easy it is for that to happen, because people don't know it's even there oftentimes. So they pull you over to let you know. What else was I going to say? I can't remember.
Vehicle.
And at some points, well, as far as some point subsequent to this, did you learn that there are exterior cameras of the Canton Police Department as well as cameras within the Sally Port garage area?
Yes, I did.
And have you reviewed each of those respective cameras prior to your testimony here today?
Yes, I have.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I know what I was gonna say. I had predicted question
Showing
on
you with
cross
this, that's,
to him, something like is keeping evidence in terms of vehicles in the Sally Port, the Lally Port. Is that common practice? I guarantee you that's going to be a question on cross. And I also think that he's probably going to finish because it's 3:30, y'all. I don't think they're going to get to. I think they're still going to be probably direct tomorrow morning. Like I don't think they're even anywhere close. 3:30.
you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that?
Okay.
The Canton Police Department driveway with video.
Jay.
And what's contained on that is that fair and accurate portrayal of
Wow.
yourself and the tow truck pulling into the Canton Police Department driveway on that afternoon or early evening of January 29th.
Yes, it is.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost seek to introduce the minutes of the next exhibit.
Yeah, just a moment, Councilman.
Okay.
Mike.
Okay.
Just
Wow.
for reference points, in regard to this view of this camera, Sergeant, you're familiar with the Canton Police Station?
Yes, I am.
And so where is this camera view in relation to the Canton Police Department and South Port
Interesting.
Garage where the vehicle eventually goes?
This camera is capturing the driveway entrance to the Canton Police Department. As viewed from Washington Street,
Okay.
that driveway there.
I have questions. Oh, so this is not from the police department. I was about to say, how the hell does this exist, but we don't have the footage of Higgins? But it looks like this camera is not from the police department. It's from something across the street.
There's on the left side
I
of
swear to God.
the structure. The camera itself is pointing towards the entrance of the driveway to the Canton Police Department.
No,
As you
this
can
is
see,
not-
the brake light illuminated in the shot.
Okay. 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 This is not from, I can't. This is not from the police station. This camera is located on either a residence or another business across from the police department. Because yes, the police department camera footage is missing. So they are relying on something else from a private citizen or a private business across the street. And what they're going to do is show, I guess, the vehicle being towed coming along the road here because they are not man enough to bring up the real deal from the police station. This is my speculation because of what else it might show regarding their own. That's my thoughts. This is disgusting.
That is a Canton Police cruiser sitting at the edge of the driveway right by Washington Street.
What a cop out, man. What a cop out. Fucking hell.
And your vehicle, is that coming from the top of the screen to the bottom?
Like
or bottom to the top?
So convenient for them, right? Yeah, our own video is missing because we're so incompetent. We can't do fuck all. But let's rely on a homeowner or some shit and use their footage because we can't save our own asses and keep our footage.
It's coming from the top left to the bottom right of the screen towards the rear of the building where the Sally Port is located.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman, if you could. Pause there, Ms. Gilman. Now, as far as what's depicted in this still shot on this video, Sergeant, what if anything do you observe?
That is the tow truck transporting the defendant's vehicle, arriving at Canton PD. My vehicle with Trooper Proctor inside, me operating, are following closely behind as we did the entire way from Dayton all the way to Canton.
Ms. Gilman, if you could play that to the end.
Or is that from the police building? Maybe it's just that one camera. I don't know. It's crazy because it's like enough to see them
as far
arriving, but
as
it's like
the-
not the actual.
Interior of the Sally Port garage, that
Put the lights. Thank you.
Right, here we go.
as far as the interior Sally Port of the garage, you mentioned that that is a heated area, is that correct?
That's correct.
And as far as the heat within that, do you know how that is produced or how hot it gets in there as far as the time that you
Molly?
spent in there?
I do not know, but it was a standard garage heating system that blows hot air. As far as temperature, when the doors were open, that day it was freezing cold. It was, I believe, like 18 degrees with, winds blowing. So inside the garage inside the Sally Port with the doors open, it was quite cold. Once the doors shut, the temperature rose above freezing, and the snow began to melt off of the vehicle.
And from the arrival of that vehicle into the Sally Port garage area, are you aware or have you reviewed video in reference to that?
Yes, I did.
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Showing you another disc, sir. Just ask you to review that one when you finish. And do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
And does that contain the video that you were just testifying about as far as the arrival of the vehicle at the Canton Police Department Sally Port garage?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
How about the seat to introduce in minutes?
No objection, Your Honor.
Now, Sergeant, before we get to that video, if I could just ask, if you know, approximately what time was it that you left Dayton following that tow truck back to the Canton Police Department?
We left Dayton approximately 4:15, 4:20, and we followed the vehicle back to Canton, arriving probably around 5:30 or so.
Just seeing. We're still on
PM.
direct.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, I would think.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if we could publish that
Yeah.
video for the jury.
He's still on direct currently. Okay, guys, I hate to say it, but I have to go because I've got lessons here starting shortly. So it looks like I think, if I had to guess, he's still going to be on direct probably by the time. I can't remember if they're ending at 4 or 4:30, but I think either way, chances are pretty good that he'll still be on direct at the end of the day and then maybe back on direct tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's only half day. So my thought is he'll probably go for the rest of the day tomorrow, which is also the rest of the week. Because if he's still on direct and then redirect, yeah, I would imagine. So actually I can leave that up because he'll be back next time. So I think that's what's going to be happening. But again, we will have our week 5 recap here in number of hours. Let's see, like 4 or 5 hours ish, and cover all of that. And then I will be back again tomorrow to cover the rest of this when he retakes the stand, barring any type of emergency or whatever. So I know Fenner, you need sleep too. Yeah. So let's all go sleep / do other things. For me, it's working. And then we will reconvene. Squirrel crew. Love you guys. Y'all are the best. Y'all are literally the best. And I will see y'all soon. This is a mess, but we'll at least we have each other, right? See you in the morning and / night. Yes, indeed. So we have our squirrel support crew here. So love y'all. See y'all soon. And I'm going to go ahead and roll the outro.